Howdy Drift fans, welcome back. Day 2, Sunday fun day. The sun's out, the cars are ready to go, and the battles are about to begin. If yesterday was anything to go by, hot tamale, today is going to be a whole different ball game. The fellas are getting ready, the fans are here. It's an action-packed day, full of drama, full of good times, and full of the most exciting drifting on the planet. So wherever you are, you've still got time to get off your asses and bring down your lasses to DGX Round 1. And if you don't know what it's all about, take a look at this and find out.
Drifting is the fastest growing motorsport in the world and combines the most exhilarating and exciting elements from multiple competitive disciplines to create one heart-stopping show. Drifting is a high-skill, high-powered motorsport that challenges drivers to control a race-built car while it slides sideways at high speed through a marked course. Drivers are judged on execution, style, and speed, rather than on who finishes the course fastest. Drifting takes all the thrilling moments and challenges from traditional motorsports and packs them together into one non-stop competition where drivers must battle head-to-head in order to find a winner. It is incredibly difficult to master, extremely dangerous, and rewards only the most naturally skilled competitors. It is very much the chosen motorsport of the new PlayStation generation and is currently the most watched and followed motorsport in Ireland. Okay, there's a lot of crazy machines and tons of tire smoke, but how does a competition work? Or how do you find a winner? Well, never fear. We're going to make it really easy for you guys. Link ECU Drift Games Extreme events are split over 2 days. The first allows drivers to practice the course and qualify, while the second is the main event and top 32 head-to-head battles. In qualifying, each driver will make 2 non-consecutive passes of the designated course in an attempt to gain the best grid position in the top 32 the next day. Each of our 3 judges score each run out of a maximum of 100. The average score is taken, and the highest of the driver's 2 runs counts towards his final qualifying position. Sounds simple, but drift layouts are anything but. Our judges will explain the layout specific to this event, but there are some key phrases you will need to learn. At the start of each run, a driver must initiate the drift at the start of the scoring zone. This area is surprisingly called the initiation. Drivers must then maintain the drift through a number of clipping points around the course. Clipping points are white boxes painted on the ground, which can be front or rear, depending on which part of the car judges want them to hit the zone with. Transitions occur when the driver changes the direction of the drift without straightening up in the middle. This should be done as fast and as fluid as possible to score maximum points. And now the awesome part, wall runs. The perfect wall run should take the paint off the rear bumper but not cause severe damage. Go too heavy into the wall and a driver will be deducted heavily. Speaking of deductions, spinning out or putting 4 wheels off the track will score a 0. While straightening up, slowing down dramatically, or not hitting those clipping zones will result in a bad score. Once qualifying is done, 32 drivers will proceed to the main event and the top 32 battles. And this is where it gets really fun. In battles, drivers take turn at lead and chase before the judges take a majority vote on who should progress. The lead driver is tasked with running the perfect qualifying line, hitting the clipping zones and staying fluid and fast throughout the course. The chase car must mirror the lead car and get as close as possible without making contact. It's risk reward, but it's insane to watch. The top 32 tournament leads to the top 16 parade. This is where the drivers get to see all the fans close up. Then we turn 16 drivers into one individual winner after the battles are concluded. The top 3 make the podium, and the rest have to rethink and come back harder at the next round. So, that's competitive drifting in a nutshell. We know it's not as easy to understand as some other motorsports, but we'll help you guys get up to speed throughout the event. For now, sit back, strap in, and prepare for some insane automotive entertainment at the Link ECU Drift Games Extreme.
So if you didn't know, well now you know, and you can get ready for some of the most electrifying drifting of all time taking place right here, where oh here he is, the Nigerian Nightmare, Peden the Weirdo Nielsen, who actually was going to be going up in a tasty battle against Neil the Glockenspiel done. We got Shay Rogers, it's going to be doing battle with the man so nice, they named him twice, David It's just classic. You know, the imagination that goes into a name like that is a little bit of an unknown here at DGX. We can't get much out of him. We don't know much, but he was driving good yesterday, so just another exciting battle. We've got so many incredible things going on here today, so get on down. It's still not too late. Look at that. Still time to get on down and be a part of what these guys are experiencing right now. A whole lot of shenanigans here. Like I said, the sun's out. We're ready. I am wearing wax jeans. I am red hot. They're like two lychees that have been in a microwave. So it's time to head on over and give me a break as we hand on over to the man with all the power. At 4'2", it's Powerhead and the commish, Dave Egan, to take us on through on this incredible day of DGX.
Introducing us so lightheartedly this morning because it is quite a fun day for us, Eddie, because it is the first competitive battles of this year. For me, I'm excited. The unpredictability of qualifying yesterday sort of gave us an inclination of what today is going to be all about. A very, very tricky track, very, very technical. A lot of the drivers saying you really have to think about it. It's so knife edge on the entry, whether you get it right or you get it wrong. It's going to decide a lot of battles today. But that's what it's all about. These guys are at the top level. They've got to be challenged. And the big story, the new blood coming through. All new names at the top of that qualifying board. Yeah, new blood really dominated it, Dave, but as you say, a lot of uncertainty because we had such a wide scope of scores from top all the way down to 32, so it's going to make for some very interesting, especially early battles, I think are going to be key for drivers to be watching, seeing what way the judges are scoring it, what's working for some guys in the chase position and what's not working for them, and I think these first few battles are going to be very interesting. We're going to get a good idea of what it's going to take to win this particular event. Absolutely, and the most important thing is that we are changing up the format a small bit, because if you lose your top 32 battle, you now head into the Drift Games Challenge, which we challenge those drivers with backwards entries, team drift, all sorts of nonsense later on. So they don't go home right away, they come back out to try and win a year's supply of Mobil 1 oil, and it's going to be very, very fun on track, especially with the temperatures the way they are. I think we've got a wide open championship. You know, you've Jack Shanahan looking strong, you have Mark McBurney, Ryan Caldwell, those guys looking strong. Caldwell is in a similar car to what he was last year, I think going in as the favourite, as the top qualifier, but Jack Shannon, his new car working straight out the box, and then a lot of guys below them having trouble and issues. Lee Scott looked good, but he had a radiator fall out the back of his car in qualifying. I think this is going to be really, really interesting. There's a lot of big tasks at hand, and as you said, the disparity of scoring from the top to the bottom will probably lead to some very, very interesting top 32 battles. Yeah, and you have to you kind of look at some of the drivers that we saw yesterday who were performing really well in morning practice, then having mechanical problems, managed to get the cars, you know, just about ready enough to get themselves into a battle position. Now having that time overnight to fix the car, they're coming back out this morning with, you know, a renewed sense of confidence. They'll be feeling as though they can cause an upset to the drivers who've qualified higher. So I think this one is really wide open, and we just have a scatter of names here that, you know, sometimes some of these drivers we've never seen compete at this level before. Others have been veterans, but are in cars that they're trying to, you know, just debut at this very round. Other drivers in borrowed cars for the event, so it's and some sort of, and then you add a brand new track layout with a big long fast entry, but then, you know, almost coming to a standstill through that first corner. This is a real test for these drivers. There's going to be some contact today, I can guarantee you that. I'm very rarely wrong when I've seen practice. I think that's going to be the case. It's going to decide some of the battles. Some guys driving with arms behind their back because cars not running correctly. They're just having to run them at lower power or with misfires or with gearbox issues. First round blues, as always, you know, everything works right up until you go to use it in anger, and the rolling road or anything like that can't replicate the sort of intensity that you need in a car, especially the ferociousness you need to be, or the mechanical sympathy goes out the window when you're drifting. So a lot of guys discovering those issues as well. But to talk us through what the lead and chase driver are going to do today and what their responsibilities are, we're going to head on over to Kevin O'Connell. He'll be joined by head judge Kieran Hines and Dan Moorhead to talk us through all the action. And Kevin, it's a difficult track. You guys have had a lot of discussion and briefing this morning. Talk us through what the lead and chase driver are going to have to do today to win those battles.
Yeah, a very technical track we have here today, Dave, even though it might not look it from a spectator's point of view, but especially on the initiation point, what we're looking for is proximity right off the bat, but not being too overly aggressive on the first corner, because it's very easy for a chase driver to get caught up there on the transition between clipping point 1 and 2. So that we want them to preferably stay roughly around the back bumper of the car, and then as soon as they transition back onto clipping point 2, dive right onto the door and try and stay on the lead driver's door for the remainder of the track, just giving them enough room to transition from maybe clipping point 3 to 4 to 5. Other than that, it's all about proximity here and not making mistakes while they're getting proximity. But as we always say, you can't have a good chase without a good lead. So what we're really going to be watching here is the line of the lead driver. We want him to absolutely nail that qualifying line the whole way around, and what we're really going to be watching is clipping point 1 to 2 and that line that the lead driver takes from those 2 clipping points. We want the lead driver to maintain a middle line, not carrying too much speed, not having to do too snappy a transition to catch out the driver, the chase driver, going on to clipping point 2 right by the wall there. So we want them to have all their slowing done shortly after clipping point 1 and then a nice smooth transition from 1 to 2. I think we'll see a lot of mistakes in this area, and a lot of battles could be decided in this area. And if the lead driver gets that line right, I'm sure we're in for great battles here.
Well, there you go. Kevin O'Connell's very, very upbeat about the battles we're going to see. Well, we're going to see them now in the top 32. I'm excited. It's a brand new season, brand new brand. Everything is brand new. And the only thing that we have to decide now is who's going to win this thing. Top 3 on the podium. Who are they going to be today? We have a Drift Games challenge. We've got a track walk coming up after top 32. The fan zone is going down in the paddock. If you want to go over to the Drift Games merch shop, you get to see all sorts of cool stuff. You get freebies over there, which is what everyone's going to want in attendance. You also get to see the Fast 5 Charger, the Mobil 1 Mustang, all sorts of cool stuff down there. Lots of show cars scattered across the paddock. A real buzz starting to build here early in the morning for this event at Modified Live in Mondello Park. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors this year, and I'd also like to thank all of those drivers for preparing incredible looking cars this year. So we are about to get a showcase of them right now. We're about to go to the line. It is the first competitive battle of the year. All the scores are reset to 0. Right now, nobody has any championship points. And by the end of today, there will be a winner. And could it be a brand new winner? We know that the winner today will be different from last year. Nobody from last year of James Dean or Dwayne McKeever on the grid. But will it be Ryan Caldwell? He goes up against what does look like a very wounded Charlie Geary in a car yesterday that wasn't working correctly. A chassis he's never driven before. They've worked on it overnight. Well, let's see if it's all paid off, Eddie, right?
Yeah, well, this is a young man who a lot of people are bidding as their favourite to take the win here today, and this is an opportunity for a rising star to come through and take a maiden victory in this pro category here on Irish soil. So I think we could have a brand new winner of a round of an Irish championship here in Mondello Park this weekend. We see the marshal giving the orders, thumbs up from both drivers. Ryan Caldwell to lead in. Charlie Geary, the first battle of the day, is underway.
Yeah, Caldwell takes it through the gears. Geary's got to go fast here. He knows how fast Ryan Caldwell is into that first corner, and Geary takes a very, very shallow line in there. He's got to catch him up through the first corner, but he's got too much to go. Almost hit the barrier, and now he's playing catch up here as Caldwell looks like he is on rails right now. Geary diving back into the corner, getting some proximity. He's got to fight for it here straight from the off. And he's right there with Caldwell, trying to go, but he shallows up again. Geary, a little bit of inexperience in the car when it comes to quick reactions, costing him there. And Caldwell looking strong in front.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing there, Dave, when we go back to the replay of this one, is that Charlie Geary may be deciding to allow that little bit extra space through that first corner, but then getting caught by it, runs very wide and almost hits the Armco barrier in the center of the circuit.
That's pretty scary. That was a pretty scary moment.
2 lanes, yeah. So
he was sort of watching Ryan Caldwell, and then a barrier arrived from the left, and that was just as he watched through. From our perspective, Ryan Caldwell looking very strong there. And continuing that form, lead position, of course, if you top qualifying, gives you that first run out, it's all you. You don't worry about the guy behind you, you just do your thing. He's right back on there with a high 80s run, and Charlie Geary with a big uphill battle. You got to love the tenacity of Charlie Geary to get back into the fight, stay on the door, but every time he got there, he was cutting the track, and then he had to slow up, and that was even playing more into Caldwell's hands.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's a really, really strong advantage to Ryan Caldwell going into the second half of this one, as the marshals just take a quick look over the cars, make sure they are fit and ready for purpose and safe to go out onto the circuit. Charlie Geary knows now as he sits on the line, Dave, that he has a mammoth task here if he's going to take down #1 qualifier Ryan Caldwell, and this young guy on serious form at the moment, and a very impressive season last year in Ireland and abroad in the UK, and he is looking good for a spot in the top 16 if he can keep this one going.
Caldwell's got to be cautious here, though, as he throws it. Charlie Geary goes way offline and pulls out. Caldwell followed him, but he had to, and now Charlie Geary beats him middle track. That looks like mechanical failure to me, Eddie, right from the off there.
Yeah, problems once again for Charlie Geary, but for Ryan Caldwell, a nice start, and I think he'd be a little bit worried about maybe on his next battle what way to follow in, because certainly Charlie wasn't in a position to give him a really proper idea of what way the lead line is going to look like. So the judges ready to make their decisions. Slide him left for Charlie Geary, right for Ryan Caldwell. Kieran, Kevin and Dan, our judging panel today. Pretty simple one, I would imagine, Dave.
I would imagine so. I mean, I think if you're not an expert, You're going to start getting a quick crash course in. If you don't finish the run, you ain't going to win the run. And after a very strong 2 runs, it looks like, I would imagine, writing's on the wall here. Okay, so Ryan Caldwell does get the win, and Ryan Caldwell gets the win and goes through to our top 16. First man on the parade today, first man in the main event, and rightfully so. No need for an explanation from the judges there. Charlie Geary. It was a brave move this weekend, taking a borrowed car that he'd never done before, but
yeah,
at this level, it's very, very difficult.
With his brand new build as well. But we move it along. The second battle in the top 32. We'll see visiting driver Ross Pryor taking on Alan O'Loughlin. Alan O'Loughlin now rising through the ranks over the last number of years and looking for a good performance this round to get his season off to the perfect start. But Ross Pryor looking very good in morning practice this morning, and he will be looking to cause a bit of an upset here as these two guys give the thumbs up to our marshals and get ready to take to the circuit.
This would vary in the balance. I mean, you have 2 guys here, rising stars in the sport, looking to make a name for themselves, 2 immaculately prepared cars. And I'm going to flip a coin on this one. It's going to be down to who holds their nerve on that first corner, I think, as they come through the gears and slam into third gear. Little weight transfer and fired in. Alan O'Loughlin initiates early, but washes wide, but stays in it. And almost sort of has to pull back a little bit. Wrong line from Alan O'Loughlin. Sort of went a little too soon on the initiation there. Now has to work of trying to catch Ross Pryor through the rest of this course.
Yeah, and I think this is where it's going to really come back to what the judges were talking about in briefing this morning, Dave. And that line that they wanted, big angle though from Ross Pryor as he throws it onto the wall in front of the grandstand, sends up the smoke screen to make it difficult for Alan O'Loughlin to get anywhere near him towards the latter stages of the run. And these 2 guys...
Well, I mean, the judges have been explaining that, you know, the track that we regularly run in Mondello Park is almost muscle memory to all of these guys now. They've done it so many times throughout practice days and events that it's almost like everyone looks a little bit better than they are sometimes because it's the same initiation all the time. When you switch up that initiation, you put it as a very technical first corner, you're now seeing guys with a little, you see Alan O'Loughlin comes in way too hot behind and just comes on the power too late. Look, sort of leaves it a little bit late, transitions very late, and that let Ross Pryor get away. And Ross Pryor's car is very, very fast. We know that. So once Ross got on the outer line and started to put foot to floor, he missed a couple of clipping zones in lead position, which will lose him points in the battle. Look at this lock from Ross Pryor, just throws it on 90 degrees there. Not sure if he even intended that, but he got away with it and he got across the line.
Costing him that penultimate clip as well. So, I mean, you know, it's all good.
Not the
well
perfect
and
lead
good putting on the big show, but you got to be hitting those clips as well and getting out.
And remember, the judges weighing heavily on the lead car through that first corner. So we might think, you know, Alan O'Loughlin made a mistake, but the judges are analysing it, you know, piece by piece, saying, was it Alan O'Loughlin or was it Ross Pryor's line that cost it? And there's going to be a lot of discussion and deliberation throughout the day on that one.
I mean, look, I don't know if Alan O'Loughlin's line was really as bad as it may have looked. I think that wide line is where the judges were almost saying they wanted to see the car in many ways coming into that first corner. So interesting to see what they will have to say at the end of a big dive into that first corner though, and contact. Ross Pryor going very aggressive on the rear end of Alan O'Loughlin. As Alan O'Loughlin keeps this one going now, Ross Pryor way offline, trying to get himself back into this one and really battling, Dave, just to try and close the gap. Alan O'Loughlin sticking to his guns, takes it nicely onto the wall, riding that wide line as they come back around through the final sections and over the line. A very interesting battle over the 2 runs. Certainly no clear-cut winner from where I was watching.
No, it's all going to come down to that first corner on both runs. I mean, it looked like Ross Pryor went in very aggressive, almost lost control of the car and just clipped the back end of Alan O'Loughlin. But Alan O'Loughlin stayed going. It actually affected Ross Pryor worse because he had to wait for his transition and he couldn't transition with Alan O'Loughlin in the way. Judges are going to have a tough time breaking this one down and going through all the pieces of that one. And Alan O'Loughlin for the rest of the run does a really good job of that wide outside line. Ross Pryor comes with a late dive but then falls away again. It's not pretty, and it's a lot of technical mistakes across both runs, and the judges will start deciphering who made the bigger mistakes. Beautiful sunshine here in Mondello Park. From my perspective, this is one of the nicest days we've ever had for drifting. Conditions are perfect. I mean, if you're coming down here on Easter Sunday just to chill, it's the perfect place. I'm
struggling to remember a day where it wasn't sunny in Mondello Park. I mean, last summer we had heat waves.
We'll have a thunderstorm in half an hour if you say that. That's how it works around here.
The rule is if you can see the mountains in the distance, or the hills.
Yeah, it is sort of like the Bermuda Triangle here. You could literally be snowing 10 minutes away and it would be sunny here. So let's see, judges wanting another little replay. Look at this, and Ross Pryor goes on big angle and sort of straightens up, and Alan O'Loughlin's on a very inside line there, so that's what they'll look at. Did he use too much of an inside line through that first corner, and Ross Pryor then just playing catch up from that point on? Judges are going to have a good look at that.
You know what, I wouldn't be surprised to see this one maybe go one more time. It just depends on how heavily they weigh on
Ross Pryor's over 90 degrees there on entry and then tags the back end of Alan O'Loughlin's car. So.
Yeah, but is he expecting Alan O'Loughlin to be a little bit wider through that first corner.
Could be the case.
And Alan O'Loughlin, of course, misses that third clipping zone quite badly.
Judges explained briefly they didn't want to see the lead driver inside on that inside line or anywhere near it. Alan O'Loughlin was on that inside line. Now, it's going to be weighing against both to see which exactly is the bigger mistake.
And of course, you and me, Dave, just speculating at this
It's
point.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. We don't have to eliminate anyone. Everyone
We will
likes,
leave here as popular as we arrived.
Everyone hates the people eliminate everyone. We don't just have to. We can speculate all day to our heart's content, but we can't make any decisions. Both drivers wait nervously for the call. Remember, if you do win this, you go to the top 16 main event and parade. If you lose it, you go into the Drift Games Challenge. So it's not all over for anyone that loses at this stage, but they got to come out here and do even crazier stuff later on, which is the real entertainment factor we're bringing
I
to
heard
it.
Mark McBurney doesn't want to go into the top 16 because he wants to take on the backwards
Yeah, he
entry
said he can win the
competition.
backwards entry competition. But there's a lot of guys out there with plenty of lock on it, so that's going to be very interesting to watch later on. It's going to be a lot of fun. And they're going to be sort of, the chains are off at that point. It's just for fun. Let's see. So it looks like we have a decision from our judges. And going through to the top 16 is Ross Barr. Ross Barr gets the win and goes through to the top 16. Quickly shoot it back to you guys. Talk us through it. Messy one there on the entry of both runs.
It comes down to the entry on both runs, basically. We say when Ross was leading, yeah, he did leave clip one a little bit early and cut into the inside of the track, which makes it difficult for the chase car. And you see that Alan had a bit of an issue with it. And when we swap around and look at the next run, Alan, though, he comes from clip one, he leaves clip one very, very early and he's right onto the inside of the track. Now, Ross dials on a lot of angle and makes contact, you know. If we look over both runs, on the first run, we scored a 6-4 to Ross on because there was a bit of separation and it was maintained, and the error made by Ross was smaller, we said, than Alan's error in the lead position on the second run. So with a small margin, Ross Barr takes it.
There you go. With Ross Barr moving on to our top 16. Got an interesting fact for you, Eddie, for our next
all
battle.
ears.
Here we go. The last time that James Hudson competitively drove this car, Conor Shanahan was born. That is an actual fact of what's about to happen here now. So Conor Shanahan in a borrowed car from Murray Motorsport. He will be driving a brand new car from Drift 2 Motorsport for the rest of the season here in Ireland. Not ready in time, some issues on the dyno. He jumps into a car he's never driven before from MurrayMotorsport.com, driven by Niall Murray in the Drift Games Nationals. And he goes up against James Hudson, so sort of an unknown here. A lot of experience around the world, James Hudson, but what can he do up against one of the rising stars of Irish drifting? Shanahan to lead in Hudson into that first corner, and already a bit of separation.
Yeah, well, Shannon going to be looking for a good start to this one. Because, and he couldn't have asked for a better one in terms of what's happened with James Hudson. And Shanahan looks like he could be getting himself an easy run into the top 16, but of course he will have to chase into the second half of this battle if it's not a mechanical fault that will keep Hudson from competing. But obviously we saw James Hudson doing really well yesterday morning, but mechanical gremlins have crept into that car and it just doesn't seem to be running right for him.
No, it was a very last-ditch attempt, and from Conor Shanahan's position, props to the guys from MurrayMotorsport.com. They're the official safety partner of the Drift Games Extreme. They jumped in and said, hey, you don't want to, you know, he's doing a full season of the Irish Championship and a full season of the Drift Masters European Championship in 2 different cars. His car for Ireland not ready this weekend, therefore they stepped up, threw him a car and said, hey, we don't want you falling behind on the points for the championship. Yeah, Conor wants to go and win the championship this year as the youngest ever driver to do it. So that is what's happening right now with James Hudson. Again, lock up on the initiation. We heard him in the pits, you know, battling for the front tires. He said the grip on the front of the car wasn't right. There was some mechanical issues with the steering while they just reared their head there as he came into the first corner.
Yeah, that's going to be the tricky thing for Conor Shannon now, because obviously he was saying as well that, you know, nitrous was fitted to this car to try and help with the laggy of this vehicle coming into the first corner.
Yeah, you can even hear it as he comes through that first corner. He's kicking the clutch to get that thing
because
going.
the NOS isn't actually working for him. So, you know, they've been trying to get this car working as well as possible, but it's all going to come down to James Hudson and what he can do through the first corner as they leave the line. Big, thick entry from James Hudson. Can he get it going this time around? And seems to be better, a bit more grip in the tyres this time around for James Hudson. Can get through the first corner, but the line just not perfect. You see Conor Shannon playing a very sensible game, just holding back, keeping his distance. He knows he'll bring that proximity through.
Well, that's, I mean, he may be 15 years of age or almost 16, but the experience is there. He knows that a 10-0 advantage from the first run. He's in a borrowed car, no point in risking anything at that point. James Hudson, as long as he doesn't, the 2 last clipping zones on this track, which is the last wall and the last zone on the grass, you have to be within those zones in the chase position or it's a 10-0. As long as Conor was there and didn't have any straightening, he was going to take that one pretty easy. And the winner is confirmed from the judges. Conor Shanahan goes through to the top 16 in a borrowed car. Connor Shanahan goes through to the top 16 to join Ryan Caldwell and Ross Barr. Business as usual in a borrowed car. He's fighting from behind here, Eddie, but he's got points on the board. He's made his first top 16 of the year. He'll be happy with that one. It looked like he might even have a car for this round. We're moving along to our next battle, and this is an interesting one. Graham Holden versus Bas Smol. Bas Smol all the way from the Netherlands. He's competing in a 2JZ BMW. He will go up against 634 horsepower, go up against 500 horsepower Graham Holden. Holden rising, started drifting just 2 years ago in the amateurs, has literally risen through the whole ranks. Now he's got to go up against a guy that's won the Nürburgring Drift Cup, that's one of the Dutch champions. This guy is the biggest task Graham Holden's had in a long time. Bas Smol said he's coming here to get some experience. He's coming here to take on the best. He wants to make a good show here in front of the Irish audience. This one's in the balance.
Yeah, absolutely, but I would not sleep on Graham Holden as they come down the straight side by side. Bas Smol tucks in behind Holden. Holden through the first corner now. Can he keep it alive? He certainly can. Just gets caught with that transition though, but Bas Smol stays there in the pocket and now looks to formulate his attack as he dives down the inside. Poor line from Graham Holden and an inside line from Bas Smol as he just tries to replicate what the lead driver is doing. Now they throw it down onto the wall. Dropped wheels from Graham Holden and not the lead line he was hoping for, Dave, when he left the start line, but Bas Smol doing everything he could there just to keep with him and keeping this battle alive.
Yeah, it just goes to show how tricky that first corner is. If you look at the higher qualifiers, they seem to be dealing with it quite well. Some of the guys in the mid-pack and down lower are really struggling there, and it's sort of a very stop-start issue to the battle. I think we're going to see that smooth itself out as the day goes on, but both guys getting through the first corner, but as you mentioned, through Link ECU corner, Graham Holden at a very shallow line, allowing Bas Smol now to go shallower again. They both get there, but look, Graham Holden not getting to that wall, stalling up a little bit. That might have affected Bas Smol a little bit there. Watch Holden's line here as he starts to go to the outside. He comes really far in. He should be right out on the edge of that black tarmac. He misses that clipping zone, and Bas Smol mirroring the lead car, staying with him, doing nothing wrong there. Holden though gets back on it here, even drops a wheel, gets right. He's definitely not going to miss it the second time around, and a good strong finish from both drivers. But you know what, the lead driver is going to be very, very heavily criticized here if he doesn't stay on that qualifying line. But Bas Smol's got to do a better job here, and we haven't seen these guys nail it yet, so anything can happen on that initiation. Driver saying it is so knife edge, so sketchy to judge that deceleration in under the bridge here at Mondello Park. And again, huge amounts of experience not on any driver on the grid. Even these guys like Graham Holden and Bas Smol have as much chance as anybody this weekend with this layout. We've got to start dialing it in though, as Bas Smol now will lead in Graham Holden as they come through the gears under the bridge of Mondello Park. And this is full throttle to a big decel zone.
Yeah, and it's all on Holden here now as he goes close through the first corner. Dave, can he keep this going? Just gets caught ever so slightly, but he's right there with Bas Smol. Smol doing a really good job in the lead position. Can he stay high on the bank as they come around by Link ECU? He can, but Holden is right there with him, glued to that E46 BMW. They throw down onto the wall in front of the grandstand. Holden needed to bring it, and he's absolutely done so. Across the line, Mondello Park makes some noise for Bas Smol. Graham Holden, what about that, Dave? He needed to produce it. He certainly gave himself a shot.
You know, that's what the spotters in the radio saying, you messed up, you got to go harder, or you got to go home. And you know what, is it enough to turn it around? Bas Smol had a better lead, but it looked like Graham Holden had all the proximity in the chase run. And that transition coming towards the second wall zone was sensational from Graham Holden. He absolutely nailed it there. I thought there was definitely going to be contact. He hung himself out quite far. But I'm going to look back at the first run here. Watch this, Graham Holden. It's not the worst, but it just goes away from that first wall zone, and that's not what you want. And Graham Holden, this is where he really makes a mistake, on the inside of the track or in the middle of the track, and then gets back on it again. Bas Smol, sort of not huge proximity, but then if the lead driver's on the perfect line, it's difficult to do it. Both guys come solid towards the end of the run, and I think that one is sort of, you know, maybe leaning towards Bas Smol, but there. Then Graham Holden comes on the attack.
You know, I think after the first run, Mull is going to have a huge advantage. I think Graham Holden closes that advantage.
Look at this proximity from Graham Holden. And this is where he gets stalled up, though. He stalls up in the middle of the track. He kind of gets left there. And then he goes, right, he knows the mistake he's made there, Graham Holden. He goes on it then. He says, I have to force the issue here. And watch this transition just as they come back here. Graham Holden looks like he's caught. Oh, so close to the back of Bas Smol's car. And he gets back on the door again. And we're starting to see sparks fly in the top 32 at the Link ECU Drift Games Extreme. And that's what it's all about, extreme driving and Holden bringing it, but is it enough to overturn some of the mistakes he's had? I think this one will be a difficult one for the judges.
So judges finishing their
Yeah,
deliberations.
and then we have a decision locked in. It is going to be a one more time between Bat Small and Graham Holden. It's going to be a one more time. Guys, quick synopsis of that one. A very close battle, some great moments and some mistakes.
Yeah, the two runs were kind of polar opposites of each other, really. Holden's lead line was pretty poor, but Bass managed to have a really good chase run, even despite Holden's lead run. You switch them around then, Bass had a really good lead line, bar missing clip 2, but Holden had much more proximity. So the two mistakes, Holden's bad lead line, but his very good chase was enough to overturn his disadvantage from the first run. It was enough to warrant one more time.
Well, we're going to shoot down to the pits. The man that had a weekend off because he installs heating systems, Eddie, he has no work this weekend, so he's down on the grid. It's Neil Dunn, ready to rock and roll.
Hi guys, I'm down here. I told you we had a real interesting battle coming up in just a couple of minutes. Neil the Glockenspiel Dunn going up against the Norwegian Nightmare, Peden Nielsen. We're going to have a quick chat with both of them and see what's cooking here in the hot sun. Neil, what's happening here? You're going up against a worthy adversary in Mr. Nielsen. How are you feeling? How are you going to take down the Norwegian Nightmare?
I'm just going to treat him like my undriftables date once again, and I'm going to abuse him. I'm going to go for those see-through doors, and I'm going to put my wheel through them if I can. Cannot wait for this. Such an incredible day here at Mondello Park. Let's do this!
You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Neil Dunn smashing it up. Let's go and have a chat with Peden. Big time money over here. A man that at the start I thought we were going to be friends, but now he just weirds me out. Peden, what's happening? You've been called up by Neil Dunn. He says he's got your number. Your doors are getting smashed. What's your response to the Glockenspiel?
I mean, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. You know, I mean, he has my number. He wants to smash me. What? Like, I thought we were here to drift, Nathan. No.
No.
Is my number on the car?
Okay, we're not getting much out of Peden Nielsen. So clearly something going wrong upstairs, but hopefully he can get cooking behind the wheel. You're a good man, Peden Nielsen. Just calm down a bit. Back to you guys.
Well, there you have it. A lot of fun on the grid already.
So Peden Nielsen, the Danish driver, has been called the Nigerian Nightmare and the Norwegian Nightmare.
Yeah, he's getting closer at least.
Yeah.
Alan Hines goes up against John O'Hare in our next battle. And Alan Hines, you know, limited practice yesterday, came in and put in a huge qualifying run, finishing in 4th. He goes up against John O'Hare, scraping in 29th. John O'Hare with an uphill battle, but we interviewed John O'Hare yesterday. He says the car is ready for it. I just got to keep the head. Well, he's up against a very worthy adversary, a man that finished 3rd in the Irish Drift Championship last year, Alan Hines. He's expected to go even higher this year, but he's got to go through a very unformed John O'Hare to do it. Two very cool cars, two 2Js under the bonnet. It's Pro Drift Academy versus Westside Tires. Let's see who takes first blood here at the Link ECU Drift Games Extreme. And look at John O'Hare holding no punches here.
Certainly not bringing the fight to Alan Hines, and you just never know what John O'Hare is going to show up. Look at this, Dave. Almost perfect from John O'Hare as he holds absolutely nothing back now. Can he just get that little bit tighter proximity through the final sections here? As
He's definitely not backing down.
Certainly not. Alan Hines throws it onto the wall. Can Jono bring one last bit of attack? No, he starts to just fall a little bit by the wayside through the final sections, but very worthy of the applause.
You know what? A lot of people watch on this track and say, "Oh, the track doesn't work, or that first corner doesn't work." That's it, perfect. Alan Hines, a perfect initiation, allowing John to get on the door, and that's where you need to be. Look at that perfect transition from both drivers. John O'Hare bringing the fight, Eddie, and you know what? That's how you start a season. He's jumped up a class. He says, "I'm not just here to make up the numbers." And people say that, but sometimes they don't really mean that. They very much are making up the numbers. But right there, he knew how good Alan Hines was, and he also had the trust in him to do a good line, put the aggression on. But just towards the end of the run, I think, coming out of Link ECU corner, he sort of stalled up a little bit on too much angle, and it cost him that proximity towards the end, but he's very much still in the fight.
He certainly is. You know what, Dave, for me, regardless of the result of this battle, a run like that will do wonders for someone like John O'Hare's confidence. He knows that he can hang it with the best of them, and Alan Hines now has to try and replicate that in the chase position. Can we see him go close? We know he's a very good close chase driver. He will be relying obviously on John O'Hare now to produce the goods in that lead position as he comes through the chicane and down the straight, slamming through the gears and throws it in nice and wide though. Ooh, washes wide as Alan Hines just backs out of that one, doesn't want to get caught. He knows this is a long run. He knows that Jono's made a big mistake there and that the advantage will be coming his way as he tucks in. Jono just on the wrong line, gets that clipping point, but comes through the wrong line to get there as he tries to blind Alan Hines with that big smoke screen. Alan now tucks in, gets that proximity and brings the fight through the final sections. Wheels dropped, and a spin from from Alan Hines.
I don't know if it was a spin. I think he held that across towards the line, but I'm wondering, was that Jono pulling out on way too much angle coming out of that? It's going to be looked at by the judges. It was, Alan went for that last dive. It looked like Jono might have been a little out of control towards the end of that run. I'm not sure if it was, that Jono makes a huge error here. Goes way too wide, washes through the corner. Alan Hines sort of waits for him to get back and then gets back in the fight here. And Alan Hines transitions back onto the door. And this is where it this is what I'm trying to see what happened here. Jono and Alan do a good job here of coming through this. And right now, everybody's, where they need to be. Set up for that last corner. What Jono here's angle does, he push a little too far wide here. He goes a big angle. Oh, and Alan Hines sort of backs out of it a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what happened there.
Yeah, Jono wheels off the track as well at that point, so something else that the
judges will look at that and
taken into consideration.
It's got to be leader Chase's fault. It's got to be assigned fault to one or the other. But so definitely big mistakes from Jono in the lead position. But then right at the end, Alan Hines makes a big mistake, and Alan Hines looking stronger maybe in the lead. But Jono bringing the fight the first time. I don't know. This one a lot closer than maybe it looked on paper with the finishing results from last year. But Jono here bringing the fight, and the win goes to Alan Hines. Alan Hines gets the win and goes through to the top 16. Shoot it back to the judges quickly. Couple of unforced errors there.
Yeah, I tell you, Dave, that battle's an awful lot tighter than people might think. Unfortunately, it kind of comes back down to Jono's entry, really. Jono has a huge error on entry, washes way wide. Alan deals with it exceptionally well. Now, Jono did actually have an advantage after the first run. Jono chased Alan spectacularly, a good lead line by Alan. Everything was pretty good in the first run. Back down to the second run, like I say, Jono runs wide. Alan deals with it quite well. But as Jono is exiting the track here, he actually puts wheels over and is kind of, let's say, in a wrong position for Alan to keep chasing him. That's why Alan has to back over. So that was why we are attributing fault to Jono for that run, let's say. So Alan takes the win on the second run.
So there you have it, Alan Hines taking the win over John O'Hare, but a much closer battle than maybe some were expecting, or that it may have appeared. But we shoot it back now to Graham Holden, Bassmull, the one more time battle. And of course, both these drivers will be looking at this one, Dave, as an opportunity just to eradicate the mistakes they made on the first runs. Holden obviously doing that really good job in the chase position to bring back the disadvantages that he had in his lead run. He'll be looking for a really strong lead run. Of course, qualifying in 9th position yesterday, so he has that good line in his locker if he can just reproduce it. Bassmull tucks in behind him. Here we go, second time around for this one. And again, Holden missing that second clipping zone. Bassmull getting caught behind him and on a strange line now as he tries to just bring it back. Holden, can he stay wider on Link ECU? This time he can. He's made that adjustment. But again, just those problems in the first corner could be what this one comes down to. Now they throw it down. And again, wheels off track for Holden, and it's just not the perfect run. He's not able to find the perfect run yet this morning, Dave.
You know what? It's that first corner for Holden. He just can't seem to hold on to it. To be honest with you, he's got it wrong every time. He's come in, he's had a good initiation, and it's almost like the car is lagging or bogging down. Watch this, he comes through, and he just needs to put the power down here. It sort of stops. Transitions way too late. Like, that's way past the clipping zone. And I mean, can you blame Bassmull for being where he is at that point? It's not the correct line that the lead car is on. But Bass, you know, he sort of stays back for the rest of the proximity towards the end of the run. This is the part of the track that Graham Holden will be very used to. I mean, this is a track they've run before here, or part of the layout they've run before, so they all look very strong there. But that first corner, that real challenging bit, is starting to throw some spanners in the works for some of these guys, and they need to sort that out pretty quickly, because the judges are, you know, I know we have, you know what, I think we had our internet judges on this weekend, which is nice on the live stream. It was good to see the 4,000 or 5,000 of them in briefing this morning. I was really impressed with that, when obviously the judges were explaining all these things.
I mean, there wasn't an empty seat.
No, there wasn't an empty seat in briefing this morning from all the internet judges, and they were saying that they know exactly what the drivers are supposed to do here, and Graham Holden in that position would have been warned in briefing not to stall up like that towards the zone. It should be full throttle. So let's see what happens when we switch him around.
Yeah, Holden once again, he's going to have to go close, and he does look to do that. Now Bassmull doing a nice job getting that second wall zone. And Holden his own here in the chase position, but he's a little bit offline as he punts down the door here of Bassmull. And right now the Dutch driver doing a really good job getting the rear end of that BMW flat onto the wall as he comes wide, but again missing that penultimate clipping zone as they cross the line. Again, a scrappy affair from these two drivers, Dave. No clear-cut winner, but you know what, for me, I think Bassmull over the 2 runs is doing just about enough to take this.
It's the first corner for Graham Holden. Everything else is pretty sweet. There's no real issues. He came in aggressive. You can see it again here. Just stalls up a little straight. And then here, look, the transition. Wrong place on the transition again.
Yeah, possibly going over the aggressive, locking up those front wheels coming into that first corner as well. And then just
And you know what? We haven't seen the best.
Very unsettled then after that.
We haven't seen the best from Graham Holden this weekend, as what I know he's capable of because of what we've witnessed in the amateurs. He's a phenomenal driver, and I think that big step up to this class is going to take a little bit of adjustment for all of these guys. And these guys have been put out there on a very technical, very tricky layout. It's gonna. And that's what the judges said. Otherwise, it's so hard to judge these guys. You have to put something difficult out in front of them, and that's what's been happening this weekend. And the win goes to Basmol. Basmol gets the win and goes through. The Dutch driver goes through to the top 16. Solid start to the season for him, and I think Graham Holden's going to be back on an absolute mission in Dunleary in a couple of weeks' time. We'll go quickly back to the judges. Just for a moment, guys, entry seems to be costing a lot of these guys issues. Kieran, very specific what you're looking for and not being provided by some of the drivers.
Yeah, the difficulty here, of course, is we specified in the briefing what we're looking for, and it does involve the cars not decelerating after the deceleration zone, which finishes maybe 10 or 12 meters after clip 1 before you get to the dotted lines effectively. And what's happening now is you've got guys who are decelerating after that, and also guys who are leaving clip 1 early and actually spearing straight to the inside. And if you're on the chase position there, it puts you in a really awkward place to try and transition. You end up missing clip 2 because of it. So we're getting a lot of battles decided by what's happening between 1 and 2. Look, you've got some of the higher qualifiers who got that line right yesterday in qualifying, and you've got guys who weren't getting that first corner right. So the top 32 battles are going to be messy because of that, and hopefully as the battles progress now, we'll start getting all the guys who got the correct line, and we'll get much better battles.
They have it from the judges. We are going to move on to our next battle. It was briefly introduced to us earlier on by our pit reporter Nathan Black. It is going to be Pete Nielsen against Neil Dunn, two of the characters on the grid, two of the most fun guys to be around on the grid, and there'll be nothing but smiles at the end of this one, whichever way it goes. Two guys that are really, really well matched, I think, here. Neil Dunn on sort of the rise. He's been pushing extremely hard to get to this top level, and Pete Nielsen, he's been around for a little while. He's got that judging mentality. He knows what the judges want from the line, and I think this one is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think you got that perfect mix of crazy and unpredictable of Neil Dunn, but Pete Nielsen then very much predictable in terms of looking for that perfect line every time to try and keep that momentum going in this underpowered 180SX. Here we go, Dunn to lead them in, big angle as Pete Nielsen dropping wheels on the inside line. Dunn doing a much better job connecting the dots through the first few corners, but now Pete Nielsen looking to make his attack. Can Neil Dunn avoid the kitty litter? This is looking like a very calm and composed Neil Dunn as Pete Nielsen hunting down the door, trying to make a big dive onto the wall. He certainly does, but contact! And Pete Nielsen goes off the track as Neil Dunn takes it across the line. And
that was a mechanical issue, Eddie. That was a mechanical issue. You could hear Pete Nielsen's car when he went back on throttle just crackling and banging and breaking down. They've had issues with that car all weekend to get to this point. I think it's cost him there. He came in on a big dive. He needed to go back on the power to stay on the track, and it just crackled and popped at the last moment, and he lost power, and it put contact on Neil. That entry from Pete Nielsen, very shallow, but he got back on it very, very quickly. Neil Dunn, though, a perfect lead run there. Nice and wide, transitioning to the wall. No errors whatsoever. Pete Nielsen knows now he's got to make the move as they come through the run. And this is where it sort of goes wrong for Pete. As they transition back towards that wall, he makes one big, massive dive. And watch as he comes back on throttle, no power from the rear wheels, and then tags the back end of Nielsen's car. Lucky not to go into the wall, to be honest. Neil Dunn looking good out there.
Yeah, well, I think it was a very good example of what it is that the judges are looking for from the lead driver. It was almost a perfect line. You could see how well he was able to connect clip 1 and 2 as a result.
Well, a thumbs up from Neil Dunn. He's ready to rock and roll in the chase position. He's going to chase in. Pete Nielsen is running the car as is. He's hoping that issue does not, start again. It's an intermittent misfire, I'd imagine, in the car. There's no time to fix it, so he's got to run it as it is and hope that car holds together for the whole run. But we've seen it in the past. Neil Dunn might have the advantage now, but the second run just as important.
It certainly is, and of course, very much important that he keeps a reasonable proximity to Pete Nielsen and doesn't run the risk of having an unscorable chase run.
Well, they come through the chicane. They're off the line, through the gears, and under the bridge. It'll be Pete Nielsen to lead in. Neil Dunn, a slow entry from Pete Nielsen here, very tentative. Does get the line right. Neil Dunn now, has a little misfire of his own, and it stalls up a little bit behind Pete Nielsen, and now has to play catch-up. Could things swing the other way? A 10-0, I'd imagine, for Pete on the first one. Neil Dunn just has to get the job done here, but he doesn't want to make a huge error in the chase position.
No, it needs to be perfect from Neil Dunn through the closing sections here. Pete Nielsen dropping at a wheel just over that dotted line.
Yeah, I think Neil Dunn might have done enough there, Eddie.
I think so, yeah. Look, I mean, we got the 10-0 on the first run.
Pete Nielsen having big problems with smoke inside his car at the moment. You can't see out of that car whatsoever. He is vaping inside the car, or is it just, I mean, as I said, you can see into the car through the doors, but he can't see out of the car for the smoke. So figure that one out. Well, I think that one might be, in our opinion, leaning towards Neil Dunn with that drive off track, 4 wheels off track for Pete Nielsen on the first run. It looked like a mechanical error, not a driver error, which is unfortunate. And we're just going to check if is there any issues with Pete Nielsen's car from a track perspective.
Yeah, so here's the replay, the second half of this one. And you can just see Pete Nielsen really almost slows to a stop, and I think that's the cause of Neil Dunn's
It's a very tentative entry, and Neil Dunn sort of backs out of it a little bit. I think he's expecting a little bit more pace in there and then gets caught. I'm wondering, is that an issue with Pete's car? It has been a war of attrition for the team all weekend to keep it going. I think it's a pretty good line from here, Pete, but Neil Dunn, and remember, all he has to do is stay within touching distance. You'd imagine that it's a 10-0 from the first run. I mean, that's what, we've been around a little while, Eddie. We can figure some of this stuff out, and I think that might be an obvious one. So the drivers have a little conversation with each other out in the sun. Guys, give a round of applause. Pete Nielsen and Neil Dunn down on track. And the winner is Neil Dunn. Neil Dunn gets the win and goes through to our top 16, starting that season off right, that 10-0 from the first run. Well, some errors all around, but it's not going to be as easy as that, guys. Was it 10-0 against Pete Nielsen on the first run, or did you see it that way?
Yeah, it all really comes down to the first run there. Pete just coming in too hot and unfortunately having mechanical difficulty in front of us here at clip 8 and put 4 wheels off over the white line. 10-0, simple as that. Any other instances won't overturn that, unfortunately.
Well, that's it. Well, of course, today is running alongside Modified Line. We've got some of the best modified machinery in the country in the paddock right now. Nathan Black is down there checking some of it out.
Howdy, guys. How are we? Just down here at what they call, what was the name of it? No, not the Datsun, the event, the Shine, the modified Show and Shine, you weirdo. That's what it's called. Never heard of it before in Britain. We just call it a car show. But it's a Show and Shine. And they've got the Datsun here. We've got the M4. We've got a car over there that's made of nothing but speakers. They're playing some ridiculous Rid-Ms, nice and loud. Another reason, if you're watching this from your parents' basement, to get on up, buy a ticket, and get down here and be a part of the fun. And one of my favourite additions here is the Sugar Mama, who's handling all the wieners here today, every one of them. Come and see it down here. You can get a hot dog, a burger, a delicious beverage, whatever you need to keep you going right here at DGX.
Thank you very much, Nathan. And we have an unfortunate news story from the pits, which is Shay Rogers in that Mark IV Supra suffering engine problems. Not an engine failure, but not that they want to risk it. And I think, with the amount of misfortune Shay had last year with that engine, I think they said it's a misfire. It sounds pretty bad, and they're going to have to forfeit that run, meaning the Cypriot driver, David, will do a one run of the track on his own, and he will go through to the top 16. So for his campaign this year, he's in for the full season. He's not a wild card. This is a bit of a gift right at the start, Eddie, of getting himself into his first Irish top 16 parade.
Yeah, and we talked about David yesterday, and this guy, he comes to Ireland and put on a real show yesterday. Didn't see some of his best driving when he was out in competition and qualifying. But
he's wild out there. He's fun to watch.
Insane. I think he's going to cause problems for people because he has that unpredictable nature.
He's
definitely very aggressive.
A lot of people on the old the interwebs were saying, "Oh, Mitch Larner's not doing this here," and I'm going, "Yeah, but remember when you didn't know who Mitch Larner was 3 years ago in Watergrass Hill and you didn't care? These guys come over here and they can make a name for themselves very, very fast." And David said he is going to just drive off the track, apparently, is what he's going to do. But he actually said he's not going to do a full drift run here. He just wants to make sure the car is working and steering correctly and not risking anything and going through to the top 16.
Yeah, of course, he was having issues with that car towards the latter stages of yesterday. And
the steering issues he was reporting, so maybe he's just making sure everything's okay, but he will get the bye run. He has left the line, and Shay Rogers has not. And therefore, it will be David going through to our top 16. Here we are, Sean Watt against Dennis Murphy. Looking forward to this one.
Really, really interesting battle with two guys who have been in competition now for quite some time. But
look at the horsepower figures on the screen. 320 horsepower for Sean Watt. Half the horsepower of Dennis Murphy. Doesn't matter. Sean Watt as a perfect line driver. Dennis Murphy, he's all wild style. It's either going to be incredible and he's going to wipe Sean Watt, or it's going to be mistakes. But can he tidy that up? That's what we said this year. Dennis Murphy needs to tidy that up. That would have been the old Dennis Murphy. But now he's looking a bit more solid. He looked a little bit more solid in qualifying as well. And Sean Watt, you know, he's a guy out there, you know, doing it for the every guy, doing it for the guy that might not have a huge budget, but he listens in those driver briefings very carefully about what the judges want. This one is going to be very interesting.
Certainly is. Sean Watt, the higher qualifier, leaves the line. Dennis Murphy to give chase. A space in the top 16 awaits the winner, as Sean Watt doing a nice job getting through that first section. But look at the proximity here from Dennis Murphy as he hunts down that E36 BMW of Sean Watt. Watt staying high now as he comes around by Link ECU corner. And Dennis Murphy is poised for a big attack through the final stages. Can he find that proximity as they throw it down onto the wall? A little bit of a problem there for Dennis Murphy. Just backs out, but gains again through the final sections. At no point was he glued, Dave, but certainly gave Sean Watt a lot to think about over the course of that run. And Sean Watt in the lead position, doing a nice job making it easy for Murphy.
Well, sometimes in the past, I mean, Dennis Murphy has been overly aggressive. He's lost battles on his own because he's run into somebody, or he's gone in with too big a dive. Maybe a little bit of maturity there, saying, you know what, I'm just going to stay in this fight. I'm not going to lose it, and then go out there and try and use the advantage of maybe speed and grip to try and pull away from Sean Watt in the lead position.
Yeah, let Sean Watt come and hunt him in the second half.
If I was a strategic driver and I was in Murphy's position, I would probably say, look, I've probably got a little bit more pace than Sean Watt, and if I stay anywhere close to him without taking big risks in the chase, maybe I'll pull away from him. Sean Watt will probably have other ideas, and the fact that he's naturally aspirated, I think Sean Watt will be quicker from clipping zone 1 to 3 than Dennis Murphy, because he doesn't have that turbo lag to deal with because he's in an M3 engine. So it's going to be a real game of chess here to see what happens, and I would say it's very much in the balance.
So, as always, we switch them around for the second half of this one. Keane Droney gives them the signal on the line. Thumbs up from the drivers. They are ready to go. Through the chicane goes Dennis Murphy. Sean Watt just guns it off the line, side by side as they come down the straight. Now they slot into formation. Big entry from Dennis Murphy as he looks to take it to the wall. Nice line from him. Now, can Sean Watt replicate the proximity? Can he bring the fight as they come into Link ECU corner? Sean Watt very evidently not bringing that same proximity to Dennis Murphy. And Murphy now getting hard on the brakes as he brings it towards the wall. Just missing that penultimate clipping zone and crosses the line.
I think I might have predicted that one, Eddie. I think I might have predicted that one. I think Dennis Murphy played a great game there. He said, you know what, I'll be fast, I'll be fluid, but you can't cut the course. You've got to do it on the qualifying line. That was a great first corner from Dennis Murphy. Got right out to the wall on clipping zone 2. And Sean Watt, while he had a good dive, he just couldn't get back on the door again. So let's see what happens when the judges call their scores. And the win will go to, into the top 16 goes Dennis Murphy. Dennis Murphy goes into the top 16. And I think that one was probably pretty obvious. More proximity from Dennis Murphy and not proximity from Sean Watt. I think you can figure that one out if you're even a casual internet judge.
Even a drift noob would
if you're
figure
a
that one out.
Noob, you can understand that one. And again, another driver through to our top 16. Half the bracket done in the top 32. Remember, at the end of the top 32, you guys here in attendance can go down on the track, meet the drivers, and check out the cars. Here's an interesting one. Jack Shanahan going up against Wes Keating. It's an old school one, an old school battle here between these two guys who've been around the scene for quite some time. Shanahan in a brand new car, Wes Keating in a car that he's been struggling with a little bit this weekend, trying to get it up to speed. Let's see what happens here. This is going to be very interesting. Good to see these two guys back on the grid here at the top level in Ireland. What's going to happen next? We certainly don't know.
No, that car obviously seems to be working right out of the box for Jack Shanahan. Wes Keating just has not looked settled in this car. The car hasn't been running right for him at all. Can he just get it together for a lap? Jack Shanahan offline. Wes doing his best to stay with him here and starting to bring a fight here. This is the best we've seen from Wes so far this weekend, but now starting to fall back a little bit as he just struggles with the handling of that car. Just doesn't look like an easy car to drive. Trying to do anything he can just to drive around it and get himself in a position to cause a problem for Jack, but Jack looking very good after that sketchy entry into the first corner.
It all came down to that second transition for Wesley Keating. Got himself caught a little bit on the inside of the track and had to go on big angle. You'll see it here in the replay. A very brave move from Wesley. Dives straight at Shanahan. Stays with a perfect transition. This is where it goes wrong for Wes. He gets caught just here, has to go an angle, and then when he transitions back, Shanahan is away, and that's a real, touch and go front clip there. So it's not something you want to hang out on big angle. Judges don't want to see big angle. I think he got himself a little bit caught, but got to say fair play to Wesley Keating for being very aggressive there and knowing the caliber of Jack Shanahan's driving, saying there's no point in just doing a safe run here, and he keeps himself very much in the fight.
He knows as well, Dave, that Jack Shannon's going to be hunting for the door in the reverse of this one. So
for sure. And look at this. I mean, it's Irish drifting. You think about this 5 or 6 years ago. Do you ever see a 2JZ GT86 up against an LSX crate motor 180SX? This is just how far this sport has come in these two machines. Big waves from Wes. He's happy to be out there. He says the car runs this weekend. He's almost as good as taking home top spot. But it is right now. But can he cause an upset in the second half of this battle as they come off the line? V8 versus 2JZ. Toyota versus Nissan.
Cone knock from Wesley Keating there as well, Dave, as he leaves the line, coming through that chicane. Jack looking to go for the door early. Keating running wide, getting caught in a spin from Wesley Keating, handing the victory there to Jack Shanahan.
That must have been like slow motion for Jack Shannon in front of him as he looked at the back of Wesley Keating's car and then the front of Wesley Keating's car very quickly. But straight out the box, this new car of Jack Shannon seems to be doing the job. This is the car he will be campaigning in Europe this year, and will be back with this car at the end of the season for JAFest Round 5, the final fight in Mondello Park. But he will be back in last year's car. Conor Shannon's the car from last year for the rest of the Irish season. So it's a lot of jumping around from the Shannahans in cars this year, but out of the box that one looks like it's worked. But fantastic to see Wesley Keating back on the grid. He said this weekend very much a shakedown for him to make sure the car is working after a year, maybe a year and a half of problems. Jack Shanahan gets the win, and Jack Shanahan, official from the judges, goes through. He's into the top 16. The two Shanahans into the top 16. They will join Ryan Caldwell, Ross Barr, Bas Mull, Alan Hines, Neil Dunn, and David Davis. So stacking up in that top 16 for later on.
So moving on to our next one, which is a juicy affair. Kieran Casey taking on Tomas Falvey.
All of the horsepower is about to come off the line right now, as we've got 650 horsepower, 600 horsepower maybe going up against 920 horsepower. This is a lot of horsepower. Two
of the nicest cars on the grid, yeah, undoubtedly.
They're actually going to go to the show and shine and win that straight away after this battle. But these two immaculately, I mean, they might not be immaculate at the end of the run, Eddie, that's always the fear, but 930 horsepower makes it I think one of the highest powers race cars, if not in the country. There's a Veyron or a LaFerrari somewhere in a garage somewhere that might argue it, but as a car built by by amateurs and built in Ireland, this is definitely the highest horsepower car. Going up against Tomas Falvey's immaculate Elite Autos, Drift 2 Motorsport, Origin kitted S15. Two guys that are definitely looking to prove a point here, would love to be in that top 16 parade. Only one can be. Who's going to hold their nerve as they come in under the bridge?
Well, it will be Casey as the higher qualifier to lead them in, but look at the aggression. Contact from Falvey. Rear bumpers flapping in the wind. Can they keep this one going? No, Casey
shut it down. Casey has shut down. He may have an issue here. That was a pretty heavy contact. You can see Casey taking a big shunt into the back. Remember, the rear radiator setup is in the back end of that car, Eddie. That could be the issue.
Yeah, I wonder, did he possibly lose drive there, or?
That was a heavy shunt, and you can see by the back of Casey's car, it was a very, very heavy shunt there. And I'm not too sure we're going to try and get down to have a look a little bit closer, but Falvey comes in absolutely lit into the first corner behind Casey. And he's alongside him on entry, and he literally just runs into the back before initiation. And
I don't know, I'm just wondering, is Casey slow down the straight as well?
Irregardless, the rules state that you must initiate behind the rear bumper of the lead car. Yes, you'll be deducted, but I don't know. He didn't abruptly stop enough, I think, maybe for Falvey to hit into the back. That would be my opinion. But at the same time, contact, and Falvey is supposed to be sort of tucking in behind, sort of was alongside, but it's almost the weight transfer of Casey. Watch, almost goes into Falvey, and then Falvey just, trying to be very aggressive. I mean, that's what they're trying to do out there, put these cars on the line. I mean, there's probably people here that own S15s that aren't as nicely prepared as that would be devastated if they got a door in a car park and give a scrape along the side of the car. And Tomas Falvey just drove straight into the back of another car on purpose. So there you go.
We're getting another opportunity just to watch this one as they come down the straight.
So 5 minutes called from Kieran Casey.
Just looking as they come down the pit straight, Dave, just before the contact. Now, I may be wrong, but does it look as though the nose of Kieran Casey's car just kind of lowers a little bit as an indication that he's slowing the car, braking? I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is where it becomes very difficult as a judge. I mean, no matter what decision you make, you're making the wrong one to somebody, because it's a real 50-50 of was the contact caused by slowing or did someone go in too fast? And I mean, this is a relative thing. I mean, it's not
it could be a case that this would be the type of run that we won't know what happened until we've discussed it with the two drivers at the end. So you can see our team just preparing to take Casey's car off the circuit. And
now,
we are waiting to hear.
What we're getting feedback is from the drivers now, you know, there may be now, this is going to tell you a story, right? Imagine this was like this Game of Thrones. You're trying to figure out the story as it goes, right? Kieran Casey has got hit from the rear by Tomas Falvey, but yet opens the bonnet of his car to look and see what's happened. That, to me, might sway back to your theory, Eddie, that there was an issue with that car on initiation and that it slowed down. That could be the case. We want to hear from the marshals. We have marshals dotted around the track. They're also listening to engine noise, Starline marshals, and everybody else. But to me, opening the bonnet of that car would tell me a different story.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you there, Dave. And what I would say as well is that from watching Tomas Falvey over the years, it's uncharacteristic that he would be that aggressive through a first corner.
Yeah, now watch, as you said, Casey's car, he's not on big speed there, I think. And then yeah, he's not. It doesn't look like he's on major throttle. Let's see what the way the judges go on this. I mean, and then Casey shuts it down immediately. If it isn't an issue with the rear end of the car, it may have been an issue with initiation with power. So that's, who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, the judges, the marshals, they're going to figure this one out. We can kind of speculate ourselves. Eddie, we call it like, you know, people at home would see it. But there's a lot more going on out there. There's a lot more eyes and ears on that track knowing exactly what's going on. Of course, one amazing thing about drifting is the drivers are generally very honest about what's happened when it comes to this kind of stuff.
The judge is going to take another look at this one, and I think something, you know, that they're looking at is there movement in the cockpit of this car, Dave?
Okay, so while we wait for these guys to work this one out, Kieran Casey's on a 5-minute rule. We're going to throw back down to the pits with some of our super fans, Drift Games super fans are down there with Nathan Black, talking about their season tickets and talking about the prizes they've been picking up with those season tickets.
Certainly correct, Commish. I'm down here with two of Drift Game's biggest fans. We're here with Katie and Kira, and we're going to have a little chinwag. Ladies, do you mind if I just come between you? Of course you don't. How are you? How are you enjoying it here today?
Oh yeah, apart from getting sunburned.
Yeah, sunburned, like it. How are you feeling?
Unbelievable.
Now, you guys are season pass holders, right? Which means you come into all 5 events, round 2, 3, 4, and then 5, because that's what order they go in. But you came in today, and there was a competition, and you guys won the competition. You both went out in cars earlier on. How was that? Feel the thrill of the grill and the rev of the engine. How did that feel?
It's always amazing, especially when the car doesn't have brakes. So you just always feel unsafe. It's great.
And you were with?
Dan Moorhead.
Dan Moorhead in the Beast, the Fast and Furious car. Tasty little machine. And Katie, you were in?
I was in the Mustang with the commish.
In there with the commish. And it was a good old ride, right?
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. Now, so what, there's a couple of guys online. There's a guy called Shamil on the comments. He sounds like a type of dish soap to me, but he's been saying, Keyboard Warriors, give me a hard time. How can we convince him to get off, take off his old pants, put on some trousers, and come on down and do what you guys have done and buy a ticket? What advice would you give to poor old Shamil on what he's missing?
Come down, like, it's amazing. The lads are here, supporting the lads out here. The lads are there, you get to talk to them, you get to talk about cars. It's unbelievable, so you're in the action, like.
Feeling it right in the middle.
And you get free stuff as well.
And you get free stuff as well. And that's it. So Shamil, come on down and be a part of us, and you can hang out and we'll get a hot dog together. Now, just to prove that these two ladies are super fans, the t-shirts weren't enough, the shades weren't enough. They went and got matching Drift Games tattoos. That's when you know you got a real Drift fan. Yours is hidden away into the tights, but we can see, as we head on back on over, let me just get down there. Don't mind, can see here, this is what it's all about. So get on down and be a part of the fun live here at DGX.
Thank you, Nathan. And you can see Kieran Casey's in the pit. They're under the bonnet of that car, and you can see a lot of commotion down there, and marshals and judges having a good look at everything that's going on to see exactly what happened. And this, I mean, the case here is going to be that Casey's slow because he had an issue, and Falvey hit him. Is the issue caused at the back end of the car, or if it wasn't, was Casey slowing completely separate to that?
So we are moving on to the next battle while they try to fix their cars. It will be a very interesting one. Lee Scott taking on Andy Earl, and Andy, of course, getting the wildcard entry into this this competition, into the DGX competition for round 1.
Yeah, we look like we've heard a little bit about the Casey Falvey incident. We'll get back to that when they come to their second run after the 5-minute rule. But we're now back on the line with Andrew Earl, and it would be a big... These guys started off together at the Irish Amateur Drift Championship many moons ago, and I mean many, like 2 or 3 years ago. Here they are at the top level. Earl's going to be good for this. He knows how good Scott is. He's going to put trust in him. I think he's going to go closer. He's almost up the straight before him. Oh!
Big contact!
Big contact between Lee Scott and Andrew Earl. That's way too aggressive on entry there, Eddie. That was really, really aggressive. That was insane.
Yeah, I was watching
Very
that
lucky.
one saying
Both drivers looked like they're okay. Earl went into the
work.
Earl went into the barrier as well. Just to check with both drivers. That you could see it so clearly what happened there. And this goes to show how knife-edge drifting can be. That was a big, big hit. Lee Scott looks like the back end of that car has just absolutely collapsed. The car hopped up in the air. Recovery is on its way. The guys get checked over. Watch this again on the replay as they come through. Earl's way too far ahead here. He tries to dive in at the last minute, but Scott's not out of the way. He just drives into him. Boom, wheel comes straight off the car.
Yeah, and that is a huge, huge incident. I think
Earl goes into the barrier straight after it.
Very lucky that that wasn't more serious, Dave, because that was a big, big hit down the straight. And you got to remember, these guys will be flat through the gears at that point, carrying a lot of speed.
Wow, that's a big hit. And Lee Scott would not know what happened there. No, the car just took off up into the air.
He would have been caught completely by surprise with that. You can see he's out of the car. And
well, it goes to show
the
how
main
hard
thing
these
here
guys
is that, look, he's out of the car. Guys, give them a round of applause. Neither driver appears to be too...
shook up, yes, but injured, no. And
of course, that safety equipment that they're wearing.
Yep. These guys all wearing hands devices this year, meaning that those jolts and bumps. And look at Lee Scott's car. Wow, that is a big problem. That is a big problem, and it's obviously going to be Andrew Earl's fault, I think, here. And does that put Lee Scott out of competition for the rest of the day? That's the question. I mean, he's going to have the time now, all the way through the rest of this bracket, and he's going to have the parade, and he's going to have everything else. He's probably going to have an hour and a half to maybe try and get that car back together, but it's not what they wanted after the rear radiator falling out of the car yesterday, staying up all night to get that fixed. First run up the straight, and look at the impact here as Lee Scott takes off up into the air. The axle absolutely collapses, and he manages to hold it straight. Earl goes into the wall, and Lee Scott, no idea what's happened there.
Yeah, and you know, I think from Earl's point of view, we were saying it as they left the line. He knows he's going to have to go hard here against Lee Scott. As we see Kieran Casey's 5-minute clock, 1 minute and 15 seconds remain on that as he tries to get that car.
And what we are hearing is that it is a wastegate problem with Kieran Casey's car. So there was a wastegate coming off the car. They're frantically trying to get the car fixed, but it looks like from where we're sitting and what we're overhearing in the background, that Casey's car was not under power on initiation. It must have kicked to go and something split or something broke. And I think at the moment, I'm not talking for the judges, but it seems that they are blaming Casey for slowing down in front of Tomas Falvey on initiation and not going on power. And that's sort of, if it was an issue with the radiator in the back of the car, or it was a hub or a rear drive shaft or something from the hit, you could go fair enough. Or if it was something in the back of the car, but it's actually in the front, so that would be unrelated to the contact that happened. And Casey did not turn a wheel after that point on the run either, even with the contact. So judges, it's a tough game being a judge. You got to really decipher a lot of moving parts.
And I think what's worth pointing out as well, Dave, that if this bonnet wasn't opened, we might never have gotten an exact answer as to what exactly was happening. But they seem to have that car. Look at this, Dave, with 10 seconds left on the clock.
Oh,
closing down the bonnet of the car.
He just has to leave that pit area. And he puts it into reverse with 2 seconds. What was that, 2 seconds?
Literally had just...
Wow.
Just
2 seconds before the clock ended up. And on the track, we have Lee Scott now. You can see him on the radio to the team. This is not going to be an easy fix no matter what, because that car has literally gone up 4 or 5 feet in the air, or 4 or 5 inches, sorry, in the air, and landed straight back down on the chassis.
And of course, it looks as though
So
be a
Lee Scott
competition
will have a competition timeout, which will leave him to try and get to the end of the run. It will depend on whether he can get back to the line or not. Judges will decipher that with the marshals. And you know what? I think there may be a case here of Andrew Earl being called into question of conduct on that run-up as well, Eddie, because that wasn't exactly a drift error. That was a big, big error that actually just crashed into Lee Scott. So the judges will look at that one and see how things go. But we got to keep moving along. We're certainly not lacking in drama at the top 32, Eddie. We're straight off from the off here in Ireland this year.
We did say that first corner was going to cause some problems today, and it absolutely has. And but you know what? As always, Dave, with a new circuit, a new track, as we progress in the into the top 16, grade 8 and final 4, and we get the drivers that are really performing on the track, these battles will start to heat up. So in a couple of weeks' time, we will be visiting Dunleary for the 3rd time. And of course, tickets will be on sale from 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Get them while they're hot. And here's a quick little look at what you guys can expect when we revisit that circuit for the 3rd time in a row. So just a reminder, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, get your tickets while they are still available. They will be sold out within a few hours. As you can just see, Lee Scott's car almost recovered off the track here in Mondello Park. The marshals have given the track a quick look over. They're happy, and we are almost ready to move on. Of course, competition timeout for Lee Scott to try and get that car repaired, but a lot of damage done to the rear end of that vehicle, and it could be untold damage as well, Dave.
I'll tell you what, just having a little conversation with the judges there. So we're just going, I was having a discussion about the rule book. In a case that Andrew Earl was deemed to have deliberately driven into Lee Scott, he would have been disqualified, and Lee Scott would have not needed a competition timeout, but would have moved on. However, inexperience and the judges deeming that Andrew Earl made the mistake, he didn't intentionally try and drive into Lee Scott. And if you know Andrew Earl, these guys in the grade, that certainly isn't the case. So Lee Scott will receive a competition timeout, meaning he gets until the end of the top 32 bracket to come back out to try and complete that run. If he cannot do so, he will get the win, but cannot continue for the rest of the competition. That is how the rules work here, to avoid any dirty tactics or people playing Ronaldo, and lying on the ground and saying their car is broken. So those are the rules. We'll keep you informed as it goes. We thought we'd have a nice, easy top 32, Eddie, but it's all 5-minute rules and contact and bumpers and breaking down. Definitely an unpredictable top 16 main event ahead of us later on. And Andrew Earl also suffering damage, and for the front, he went into the barrier pretty hard after hitting Lee Scott. The front wheel off that car, and they're having a good check over, so we're not too sure what's going to happen. But we are back to the second half of the run between Falvey and Casey. We alluded that it may be an issue with Casey's car that cost the first incident, but it still has to be a second run and still can be all going the other way here. So will we get these two guys through the first corner? Can we get through the first corner? Let's see what happens. As Falvey now will be in the lead position, Casey in the chase. It looks like with 2 seconds to spare, they've got as much fixing as they can do to Casey's car. Will it hold up as they come down the straight? Looks like he's got the pace here with Falvey, and he's got to go hard.
Yeah, he needs Falvey to make a huge error, though. And
Casey's got issues again.
He's just got problems, and you can just see that car just not working for him the way he wants. Falvey, though, seems to be on form here. Nice wide and high line from Falvey. And as I say, we still don't know for sure, Dave, exactly what way the judges are going on that first run. Oh, contact again. And
the last inch from Casey there.
You know what? They spend all winter.
Why would you make your car look this pretty and then go out and crash into each other? Yeah. Guys, this is right on the limit stuff from both drivers. Thumbs up across from both guys. Give them a round of applause. These are some of the nicest cars in the country, never mind drift cars, and they're smashing them into each other for your entertainment. Guys, give it up for Tomas Falvey and Kieran Casey. That's a hard-fought battle out there with mechanical issues and everything else. They deserve a big ovation from that grandstand, and they await their decision from the judges. 1,530 horsepower in front of you right there on the track. That is how crazy that is. And the win goes to Tomas Falvey. Tomas Falvey gets the win and goes through. But just kick it back to the judges quickly. We were overhearing some conversations. About that first contact. What way did you guys see it?
Yeah, just very quickly. On the start line, it looked to us as they were rolling up, it looked like we watched the time, and we could see that Kieran seemed like he was just slowed at the point where Tomas was going to initiate. So Tomas was expecting him to be going up the track a little bit more. I think that's why the contact happened. Regardless, we got the marshals below in the pit area to check the rear of the car and see was there any wiring there, maybe a fuel pump or something that might have been disconnected causing the breakdown. There wasn't. So at that point, it's a 10-0 to Tomas. So, you know, obviously the contact didn't cause the issue. So.
There you go, that's why we break it down that much. We're going to jump back into the pits with our Dutch driver. He's brand new in the championship and he's into his first ever top 16. Nathan is with Basmol. Oh, we had a little bit of a technical issue with the microphone there from Nathan. We'll get back in touch with Basmol very, very soon.
Are we back? We are.
Oh,
sorry, I thought I'd been fired there for a second, but there's still time. Don't worry, guys, I'm still here. We are down here with a man all the way from the Netherlands, Bas, to the mule. Bas, talk to me. Amazing there, you went up, you made it through your first battle. How was that?
It was very exciting. Graham Holder is a very fast driver. I had to adapt to his quick driving style. Managed to win the battle after a rerun. Was a very awesome battle.
You look calm, you look cool, you look like nothing could faze you, but you're going up against the Wunderkind. If you actually see him over there, over in the distance, Connor Shanahan, look at him, he's getting ready. I think he thinks he's going to take you out and smoke you. Does that intimidate you, having someone with a name and a presence like Connor, or is it nothing to you?
Of course, he's a very experienced driver, but you know, we have the car that can do the job. Now it's up to me to do it.
How do you beat Connor? Is there a formula, or is it you want to give away your secrets?
Just go for 110% and see what happens.
Amazing stuff. Do you want to like, Connor, he says he's better than you. You do like the Undertaker, something like that. Nothing like that. Bas Mule says he's got what it takes to take out Connor. We're going to find out as things heat up here at DGX. Thanks, Bas. Boom.
We're back in action. We're getting through this top 32 grid, and it definitely hasn't been without its stories. We are filming a full documentary behind the scenes this weekend of Irish drifting, and I'm pretty sure they have plenty to film. Next up, Chris Doyle against Terence Fury, the complete unknown battle. One driver, Chris Doyle, hasn't competed in 4.5 years, never even drifted a car until yesterday in 4.5 years, and the other is Terence Fury, who's come straight from the amateurs, fast track up to the top. This is one where we've also got a big disparity of horsepower. Chris Doyle running about half the horsepower of Terence Fury, but Terence Fury having some gearbox issues and drive shaft issues all weekend. God knows what's going to happen here.
I mean, look, the team, they changed that car. They've taken out the diff and swapped it out. He says there's no rattles in it this morning. Chris Doyle, that car is missing, but yeah, gets the jump. Terence Fury maybe just giving a little bit of a gap through that first corner and now looking to just put the foot down. Now he has that extra little bit of a horsepower advantage as Chris Doyle is looking very confident, and he is just making his return to drifting look almost seamless. Very comfortable in that 180SX, and a really nice line, and not giving Terence Fury an opportunity to get close despite his best efforts through that final section.
I'll tell you what, there was about 300, maybe 250, 300 horsepower in the difference there. Didn't look it. Terence Fury has a little wobble in the chase position, and he leaves a little bit of a gap on entry, which is unusual. Terence, usually a very, very aggressive driver. Chris Doyle's lead line, very good there. Terence Fury, watch this, just a little bit here as he transitions, sort of just gets a wobble, a little bit of understeer, back on it again. Doyle very wide though, almost into the gravel, and Terence dropping a little wheel behind him. I don't think Terence is going to be deducted too much for that as he followed the lead car, but that's a really good line from both drivers there. This one is very much in the balance. Two guys that are definitely going to be new to some people watching in from around the world, but not in the next couple of events because they are sensational drivers. As I come back to the line, Chris Doyle representing Sunoco Race Fuels, Mobil 1 Oil, Drift 2 Motorsport. Terence Fury representing Trainer Stuff, and you know what? This is one of those very interesting battles where these guys really want to make a name for themselves. You know, a lot of people go, I'm not sure who these guys are, and I think by the end of today they want to change that, and that's going to happen in the next 40-50 seconds as they come off the line. Terence Fury with a lot more pace into that first corner.
Yeah, can he get the jump on Chris Doyle? Chris Doyle now, will we see what he's capable of in the chase position? Looking to bring the fight here, but he's going to have to pull up his socks because Terence Fury on a really fast lead line. And we spoke yesterday about just how quick this car can beat through the circuit, but Chris Doyle not giving him an inch. Both drivers on an excellent line, and you got to say, Dave, in the lead position, Chris Doyle and Terence Fury have made it easy for the chase driver.
That's the best 2 runs today from both of those guys. And 2 guys, you go out there and you say it's the cleanest battle, the best 2 runs. The talent pool in Ireland so deep. New names every year. You think you know people. You think, oh, we're missing this guy this year, and then 2 guys just fill that spot up straight away. Big round of applause, grandstand. Give it up for Chris Doyle and Terence Fury.
You know, to this point, Dave, we've had a lot of battles decided on errors. There wasn't a whole lot of errors between these 2 guys, and I think the judges will have their work cut out for them.
Well,
I think it could be minor details here.
Yeah, minor detail. And do they want to see another replay? Is that
we got that wry smile from Kieran Hines to say.
So, is it going to be Chris Doyle? Is it going to be Terence Fury? It's one more time! We're going one more time between Chris Doyle and Terence Fury, and you know what? I think that's the fair call, guys. Great. Was that, to us, that was the cleanest battle all day?
Very clean battle. Very similar lead runs. Both drivers laying down a good qualifying line, and it's only the decision to go one more time only comes down to 2 small mistakes. On Terence's chase run, he had good proximity, but he had a fairly sizable wheel drop at outer zone clip 6. And on Chris's chase run, then he had a fairly sizable mistake where he completely cut clipping point 4 and went over it there with both front wheels. So those 2 mistakes kind of cancel each other out, and we had to see him go one more time.
So 2 mistakes, but a lot of very good driving throughout the rest of those 2 runs, and those 2 guys will. Are they going straight back to the line, or are they going back to chase?
When you've got 350 horsepower like Chris Doyle, you go straight back to the line. When you've got a bit more than that with Terence Fury, you go back in and get some brand new Westlakes put on that car. So we will revisit that shortly afterwards, as we don't have a winner. And you know what? Right now, it's a very unpredictable top 16 that's lining up in front of us here. We'll keep you updated on the Lee Scott issue as it unfolds in the pits. A lot of panic there, I'd imagine, at the moment. Andrew Earls fixing the front end of his car. We've Doyle and Fury back on one more time, and we move on now to a very interesting one between Mark McBurney and Christy Carpenter. Mark McBurney is supposed to be driving the Low-Brain Drifters car this weekend. Car not running correctly on the dyno yesterday. Jumps back in his old car, goes 3rd in qualifying or 2nd in qualifying, I'm not sure. He's 3rd in qualifying. Goes up against Christy Carpenter, who had just about scraped in 30th position, but he's getting better and better with every run in this brand new car. Christy'd like to make a big return here in the Westlake Tires GT86. McBurney is looking, as you can see from the back of his car, very confident with those walls. This is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, McBurney, one of those drivers, Dave, especially on this circuit, who makes it look so easy. It looks like it just comes so naturally to him, and I think Christy Carpenter is going to have to be at his best here to try and force a result. Can he go big? Oh, he certainly does, but he gets caught. McBurney on a bad line, though, quite shallow through that first section, and Christy getting caught by it now. Can Christy bring it back?
Look at the speed of Carpenter's car, though, to get back into the fight. He said he's just trying to dial the potential into this thing this weekend, and he's coming like an absolute arrow into that last wall run. But McBurney, with less horsepower, but a lot more experience behind the wheel of that car, very confident lead run from there on in. And Christy Carpenter, right behind Mark McBurney there. A little bit of intimidation tactics maybe after the finish line.
Yeah, just checking those new brakes that they installed.
Well, he did qualifying with pretty much no brakes. He did practice with absolutely no brakes. And you can see Christy again testing the brakes on that car. They seem to have issues. Here's a little tidbit for you. They couldn't find GT86 brakes in any of the motor factors around here, so they actually got Skyline brakes and ground them down to fit the pads. So that is how immaculately that car is.
Professional it is.
Yeah, that's how immaculate that car is. But now it's on sort of, chopped up Skyline rear pads. So they, in the UK or anywhere else, you'd be like, well, there's GT86s everywhere. In Ireland, it's about 10. So they're very hard to get parts for. And he comes in, locks it up.
There's quite literally one B or Z in the country.
I think so, yeah. And I think that's why they're so rare here, that the parts, I mean, there's not much of a BRZ or a GT86 underneath that car. It's all completely changed. A V8 under the bonnet, running a Chevrolet LS3, if I'm not mistaken, LS7, my mistake, under the bonnet, Chevrolet Corvette engine. Mark McBurney, he's one of those guys. He hit the podium last year in his first year in pro. He's just been a real star since the start. And we expected to see him in the low-brain car. We expect to see him later in the season when the issues are ironed out. But to come here, it's like Conor Shannon. You have to put points on the board to stay in that championship. Get to the top 16 at the very least. And Carpenter now in the lead position. McBurney in the chase, and he's got to be cautious here. Carpenter probably not as comfortable behind the wheel as McBurney is right now. Game of chess. You can see Christy knocking a cone on the start line chicane as they come under the bridge. Big weight transfer from Christy Carpenter, big lock-up, and McBurney now starting to make the move straight away.
Yeah, McBurney just holding back, I think, a little bit. Christy was a little bit unsettled through that first section, but now gets back on it. Oh, and a bit of a straighten and a lock-up with the wheels from McBurney as he just tries to negotiate the line from Christy Carpenter. Carpenter throws it onto the wall. And you know what, for me, Dave, Christy Carpenter looking good here, just missing that penultimate clipping zone, but McBurney unable to get real door-on-door proximity, stays there with him. Mistakes over the 2 runs from both drivers.
McBurney making mistakes in the chase, but we're wondering, I mean, the judges are probably going to look at this quickly and say, was Christy Carpenter coming on and off throttle quite a bit? You could hear that V8. Problem with V8s is it's very obvious to hear when it's on and off throttle. Was he consistent through the course? Right here, misses clipping zone 2. McBurney's sort of in the right position here, no problems. Christy does a good job here on the transition. McBurney kind of shortcuts it. And this is where McBurney makes it. Look, he's got a lot of grip dialed in, and he sort of straightens up a little bit there. And Christy looking pretty good out in that lead position. And McBurney here again sort of delays his transition. It doesn't go anywhere near the wall and sort of gets back into it. So maybe not the characteristic chase run we expected from Mark McBurney.
You know, could this come back to what the judges spoke about earlier on about not decelerating too far into that first section and getting back on the power nice and early? Was it a case that Christy Carpenter was just on the brakes for too long, causing an upset for McBurney's line? They still deliberate this one as both drivers sit and await the result.
Yeah, this could be a little bit of deliberation from the judges. I mean, McBurney, you would have expected to be very confident in the chase position, but Christy sort of dialed it up as the round went on. Every run goes by, he gets more and more comfortable. We'll have a look down at what's going on behind the scenes. It's the beauty of having the cameras on the screen here. You can see there is about 47 people fixing Lee Scott's car right now to get him out by the end of this bracket. And all these one more times, even the one more time call between Chris Doyle and Terence Fury extends the time for Lee Scott. He has until the end of the bracket. I made a mistake earlier by saying he would go all the way through. And we have a winner on track as well, and the winner will be Mark McBurney. Mark McBurney gets the win and goes through to the top 16. Shoot it back to the judges. Guys, talk us through that one. Pretty close.
Yeah, that was actually a very surprisingly close run. Again, clips 1 to 2 causing this, making this very, very difficult for us. Both drivers on their lead run being quite sloppy from clipping points 1 and 2. The difference being that McBurney was able to deal with Christy's mistakes from 1 to 2 in his awkward transition, whereas Christy wasn't able to deal with Mark's slightly bad line. For the rest of the runs, fine. Christy couldn't get his proximity back. He didn't get anywhere close to McBurney, but Mark did. He was, even after clip 2, he was right back onto Christy's door, but he was making a lot of mistakes, which didn't give him as much of an advantage as he could have. Slight straightens here and there, but it was still, with the proximity, it was still enough to take a sizable enough advantage to take it.
So McBurney getting the call from the judges. We shoot back to the start line though, Dave. One more time, Chris Doyle and Terence Fury. And we talked about this one being probably some of the best runs we'd seen so far today. Expecting more of the same from these two drivers as they get ready to leave the line. And what it would mean for both of them to see a spot in the top 16. Of course, Chris Doyle returning, but Terence Fury with a lot of people calling him one of the future stars of the sport as well. And
Terence definitely coming much more aggressive here behind Chris Doyle. These guys starting to learn. Terence just takes a last-minute touch of angle that sent him a bit back. Doyle looking comfortable in that lead position. Now Fury starts to bring the Fury and get on the door of Chris Doyle as they come around. Link ECU corner. Here we go. Right door to door as Fury now starts to use his experience in those Tully Roan ovals to get right close, but look at this. Doyle right out to the wall, tags the wall. Fury's on the door. That is what it's all about.
An absolute dogfight from these two drivers, not putting a foot wrong. And you know what? They're both going back to the start line. Spotters will be in the ear saying, guys, you just got to do what you did. You got to go hard again, because this has been phenomenal from these two drivers. I mean, it's hard to find a mistake here, really. I mean, there's very slight wheel drops as they come towards wall sections.
It's showing us the potential of this track is what these guys are doing. This is what the track is designed to do, is have really close battles, and these guys are doing exactly that on track. Doyle has a big hit with the wall here, as you can see, bent in the back end of that car as he goes a little too deep and has to just push through it. Luckily, there's a lot of these cars with the back ends are just fiberglass with a little bit of bash bars on them, allowing them that little bit of margin for error to keep the throttle in. But the problem I think Chris Doyle is having, you can hear that car breaking down and misfiring, down on power. He's going to have a tough time staying staying with Terence Fury here and trying to bring that kind of proximity. Fury didn't have it in the first one more time. He knew what he had to correct. He did. I think it's up against it for Doyle here because he doesn't have the legs.
I think he knew he could trust Chris Doyle a little bit more this time around as well. There was that uncertainty going into the first battle as to whether or not he could chase in hard through that first section. I think maybe losing some ground because of that. But Doyle will know that he can trust Fury as well. These two guys very evenly matched through the circuit, and I think Doyle will be bringing the fight here as he looks to go close, but not with that same proximity through the early sections, but plenty of time now to catch this back up. Fury doing a really nice job. Can he keep it high in the bank? He certainly can. And again, Chris Doyle just missing that little bit of pace in the car, Dave, to get that real proximity, but looks to make a big dive, drops a couple of wheels off circuit, and it starts to fall apart. And Terence Fury, for me, Dave,
yeah, I think that's the that's the end of that car for Chris Doyle. You can hear the breaking down getting worse and worse and worse throughout the whole run. You can hear it misfiring. It's been misfiring since yesterday morning, and it definitely just gave up the ghost there. You can hear as he revs it, nothing out of that engine left. But Terence Fury, for me, what a standout performance there from both of these guys. You're looking forward to seeing them for the rest of the season because they are in the big time now. And the winner is announced, and it is going to be Terence Fury going through to the top 16. Terence Fury takes that Skyline R32 there. Round of applause for Chris Doyle. Valiant return to the sport. Wow. I mean, incredible stuff on track from both of these guys. New stars made. And we have a decision. Terence Fury gets the win, and we are moving on to the next battle. And the time ticks down for Lee Scott in the pits after that huge impact with Andrew Earl, where both ended up either in the air or without a wheel or in the barrier, and a lot of repairs being done.
So we turn our attentions to the next battle. Paul McCarthy chasing a championship this season, coming up against Robin Neeson, who of course has transplanted all his running gear into this 180SX, formerly owned by Kevin Quinn. And Neeson reporting that he feels a lot more comfortable. It's a much more drivable chassis, and he's looking to cause an upset. Can he now take down the giant killer in Paul McCarthy, who has looked very comfortable out on circuit as well?
Well, he's changed nothing in the car since last year, so he's starting where he picked up last year. And very experienced driver, Paul McCarthy, one of the most experienced on the grid. And that is how that first corner is done. Nice midline of the track. That's how it's meant to be done. And Paul McCarthy showing that track works very well, and it's very fast when you get it right. And he leaves a big gap on Robin Neeson, but Neeson has all the horsepower in the world to catch him here. And that's exactly what he's doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, that gap looked almost impossible to close up, but Neeson, with that forward bite in that 180SX, just able to close it so effortlessly as they cross the line. And you know what, Paul McCarthy doing a really strong job and will be rewarded heavily by the judges, Dave, for that good chaseable line through the first section.
Look at this line from Paul McCarthy. That is the perfect line. Stay in the middle of the track, full throttle the whole way through, get it out to the walls, stay out to the white line, and look how easy that would be to chase. No stalling up, and that's why McCarthy would spend that extra 5 minutes after briefing with head judge Kieran Hines asking, what do you want me to do there? And that goes to show a very good driver, that he can actually go out there and give the judges exactly what they want, and that knife edge entry. And Robin Neeson, though, here's an interesting one, Eddie. A lot of drivers in practice yesterday saying that Robin Neeson was almost impossible to chase because he was producing so much smoke out the back end of that car. Lee Scott in the pits, you can see they are frantically working on that car. It looks like we have got hubs and arms and drive shafts. I mean, you would take about 3 weeks for your local mechanic to fix that kind of thing on the back of your car. People put clutches in a week.
Just to diagnose it.
They've taken the whole axle out of this car, the whole diff, everything, and they've got everybody in the pits under that car to see if he can make it out by the end of the brackets. Neeson's back on the line. He'll be in the lead position. McCarthy will have to stay close or get lost in the smoke here, Eddie. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah, and that's the key here when you have a car that produces so much smoke, Dave, is to stay right on the door of them. And the McCarthy, as good as anyone in the business, as they go side by side down the straight. McCarthy tucks in behind Robin Neeson. Neeson through the first corner. McCarthy holding back just a little bit, but look at this, both drivers right out to the wall, and McCarthy right there with him. Tucks it side by side now. Will he make a big attack as they come into Link ECU corner? McCarthy deviating off that line just a little bit. Neeson putting on a show here. What a lead run from Robin Neeson as he flicks it onto the wall. McCarthy now looking to bring the proximity through the final sections. Mondello Park contact across the line. Make some noise. Robin Neeson, McCarthy.
That was a big
fireworks,
hit. That was a big hit. I think Robin Neeson came off the throttle and Paul McCarthy said, not a chance, son. I'm going through you. Great run from McCarthy and Neeson. And McCarthy just stalls a little here, lets Neeson, but that's the power of Neeson's car, just getting away there. But he's also a little bit understeer there, Neeson. But watch the hit after the finish line. It was a heavy one. I would imagine there is some big door marks on both cars there. You can see Neeson now goes out in the wide line just here as they come through. It looks like Neeson just comes off the power here. Bang! Big hit on the back end of Neeson's car. But it goes to show those two cars finishing in one piece. Guys, round of applause for Paul McCarthy and Robin Neeson trading paint out there.
It's okay though, because both cars are red and black, so I mean,
it's fine.
Yeah.
And the winner and going through to the top 16 is Paul McCarthy. Paul McCarthy goes through to the top 16. Robin Neeson bows out. Guys, some interesting some moments there, but it's McCarthy for you guys.
Yeah, it kind of comes back down, Dave. Like, it's just a slightly cleaner lead line by Paul in the first run there. Robin does make it a pretty good attempt at chasing him, but unfortunately is making mistakes behind him and is kind of sacrificing an awful lot of clipping points to maintain that proximity. So Paul kind of goes through in the first run with a decent advantage. We swap roles around. Robin has quite a decent lead. No major errors until he's coming past the final clip here, really. Like, he seems to shut down an awful lot of power, causing Paul to make contact. But up until that, Paul had been maintaining very, very good proximity, very aggressive driving throughout the course. So Paul over 2 runs.
Just while Dan Moorhead was talking, we just wanted to announce that you guys didn't know this, but we have the Guinness Book of World Records people down this weekend, and they are attempting how many people can they fit in the wheel arch of a BMW. At the moment, we're up to 3, and they're trying to squeeze another one in there to get Lee Scott's car back on the track. And there's about 10 lads under. You can see John Shannon, we're never going to keep him away from fixing the car in the pits. They are trying to get Lee Scott desperately out on track. His time is ticking down right now. They're trying their best. Who knows what's going to happen? We're back to the start line. It's going to be Dean Martin against Paul Conlon. Dean Martin, another rising newcomer to the championship 2 or 3 years ago, up against the most experienced man on the grid, Paul Conlon.
Yeah, some words between these two earlier on, Dave, before morning briefing, and they are both gunning for it. And Paul Conlon said, you know, if you can get close to me and make some contact, but you're going to have to catch me first.
Well, I mean, this is it. The temperature is rising here, not only in the cockpits of these cars, the adrenaline's building. We're seeing contact, wheels coming off, guys going into walls, door to door, and it's just the top 32. But Dean Martin with half the horsepower will lead in Paul Conlon here, and Conlon has been coming in crazy all weekend. Fired into the first of Dean Martin on a very wide line. Conlon almost makes contact and completely comes to a stop. Not sure what happened there. Dean Martin coming in very wide, Eddie.
Yeah, it looked to be, and I tried to watch that one, Dave, off the screen, and it's very hard to see, so I'll be looking to the replay just to see exactly what happened.
Martin takes it back to the wall, Conlon, but that run is all going to come down to that first corner. Was Martin too wide, or did Conlon just come in too shallow and almost make contact and have to slam on the front brakes? Judges will break that one down. Conlon sort of let Dean Martin go there a little bit more than he would have liked. As the initiated, Martin went wide, stayed on throttle, and Conlon dives and has to stop. Martin does get back, but not perfectly in the clipping zone 2. Judges are going to have a tough time deciding that one. And that's what's happening with this first corner. You can make an easy first corner and everybody can drift around it, and it's great. But this is separating the drivers, and that's what we wanted it to do. We wanted it not just to be that everyone does this track. There's only one track in Ireland. You can only do it so many ways. Yet some guys have done it, you know, for 5-10 years. The same corner over and over again. So it's not fair for the newcomers coming into the championship. As you look at that top 16, a lot of guys are benefiting from those experienced drivers not being able to handle or rethink their approach to that first corner. We don't know what way the judges have gone with that one, but we will turn them around. It will be Dean Martin to chase. Let's hope we can get a cleaner run. You've seen some excellent battles going down. We've seen some scrappy ones from the start. They're starting to tidy themselves up towards we get to the top 16. Cian Droney on the start line says, wait 1 minute, and then you go. And it's going to be Dean Martin chasing in Conlon. He's going to need to have his foot through the headlight, as he would say, to stay with Conlon in the straight here. And he does.
Yeah, right there with Conlon now as Conlon throws it in. Can Conlon get through the first corner? Almost contact. Conlon missing that second cone, but Martin knows that he needs to stay with him here. Needs to keep the momentum up as he fires it down towards Link ECU corner. Dean Martin on the wider line there, but Conlon, if he has that advantage through the first run, could be just holding it together here as the car squats side by side as Mondello Park is completely lost in smoke.
Yeah. If you're an asthmatic and you're in the grandstand, you're playing with fire right now.
Yeah, it's the wrong sport if you're an asthmatic.
It's the wrong sport.
Yeah.
Conlon, though, and Dean Martin will not know who is at fault for the mistake on the first run, so that's why Dean Martin had to go for it. His spotter would have been like, I don't know, man, you got to go for it here, and he did. Great proximity throughout the whole course, but Conlon's line, absolutely a little bit, shallow of 2 there, but the fluidity through the course was a lot better than his first run. And you see Dean Martin just almost falls off the track and then stays on it. Let's see which way it goes. Guys, round of applause for Dean Martin and Paul Conlon as they sit in front of you. We want you guys to get behind these drivers. They will push harder if you cheer harder. That's how it works. You've got your job, they've got their job. And yours is to cheer, and theirs is to drive. The louder you cheer, the harder they drive. That's how it works. So let's see which way the judges go. They're having a good deliberation over this one.
Yeah, so obviously not as clear-cut as it may have seemed. And I think, from my point of view, will it come back to, was it a case that Dean Martin was still decelerating in an area where he should have been?
From the pits, you can see it. Aidan Caldwell, Ryan Caldwell's father, John Shannon. It's like a dad's shed, dad's club down there. Just, we'll fix it. We've nothing else to do. Our son's cars are all running fine. They're putting wheel back on one side of the car, and let's see if they can get it on the other side of the car. Lee Scott's car has had the radiator fall out of it this weekend, and now, and a complete axle failure, hub broken, all the arms broken, wheel come off the car. And the result on track is... we're going one more time. One more time between Paul Conlon and Dean Martin. Guys, talk us through it. No separating them, and a bit of mistakes from either, or from both drivers, I mean.
Well, if you look at Dean there in the first run, he actually washes very, very wide, and he stalls up outside the deceleration zone, which basically we had been talking about earlier. But he slows up massively, which causes Paul to actually back out of it completely and almost come to a stop. Now, if Paul came to a dead stop there and then had to start driving again, it would have been a 10-0, and we would have had to decide who was at fault. And in that case, it would have been Dean. But Paul doesn't come to a complete stop. He does keep going. So after that first corner, we were like a 9-1 to Paul Conlon because the error was forced on him. But then Paul puts 3 wheels off on just after clip 5 out onto the gravel there. So the big advantage he has, he loses a load of it. He ends up at the end of the run with a 6-4 advantage. Then when we swap it around, Dean has very good proximity through the run, enough to take a good 6-4 in the chase position. It's too close to call after this, so it's just one more time from us.
So there you have it for the judges. That one is going to go one more time. No separating Dean Martin and Paul Conlon. We go back to the final battle of the top 32 bracket, which we'll see Chris Burnett taking on David Garvey in another very interesting and
again, two guys trying to prove themselves at the top level. They both had issues in practice, and you can see, I think there was rope and ratchet straps and everything in Chris Burnett's car. He's had issues he's never had before, but the car is ready on the line. So is David Garvey's. Another two guys are going to prove themselves out there over the next 2 runs. Very much in the balance in terms of experience and previous results. But who's going through to the top 16? Well, here we go. Garvey, big gap on initiation. Is there an issue with Garvey's car?
Garvey's car, I'd imagine, but no, he fires in. I don't know, maybe just, did he miss a gear? We couldn't really see. Something definitely happened to him coming up the pit straight as he tries to get back into this one now, and advantage definitely in favor of Chris Burnett. But Garvey bringing the fight here through the final sections. They almost come together. Incredible transition, and negotiating that wall very well was David Garvey as they cross the line, Burnett and Garvey.
So, I mean, Garvey, I looked at maybe a misgear. That to me would make the most amount of sense there, as you mentioned, Eddie, because he left a long gap. He might have missed the gear, and then he had to kind of fight himself back into the battle. Not what you want on the run-up, but sometimes the drifting part, you sort of overthink it, and then, or actually, there's another issue as well that David Garvey was mentioning, was he has no front brakes on the car. So maybe he was coming in a little cautious with only the handbrake to slow the car down. He said that he's having issues with brakes all weekend, and it's a little wayward in the chase position at times from Garvey. Not the cleanest of runs we've seen from him so far, but Burnett now will be in the chase position, and that entry, again, it's like a game of chess. You just can't take your eyes off it. What's going to happen there every time?
Well, if it is a case that Garvey has no brakes, it's going to be almost impossible for Chris Burnett to try and decipher what to do in the chase position here as they come down. You know, they'll be slamming through the gears and then almost coming to a stop. So this could be very interesting. Garvey leaves the line. Burnett side by side as they come down the pit straight. Big flick entry from Garvey. Will he dial on the angle now to try and slow this car down? No problems through the first section, but just missing that second clipping zone.
Yeah, Burnett going on a little bit too much angle there in the transition. Lost him, but he's back on him again here. Garvey looking a lot stronger in the lead position than he did. The smoke clouding out Mondello Park here as they transition again onto that last wall, running those spoilers along that concrete wall on the first one, and they stayed together across the finish line. Two very solid on the second half of that one.
So Chris Burnett and David Garvey come down in front of the marshal to await the result from the judges. One of them going through to that final spot in the top 16. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Burnett? Is it going to be Garvey? Of course, we are also waiting to see what's going to happen with Lee Scott and Andrew Earl.
So we await the scores from the judges.
So just a reminder that Dunleary tickets will be going on sale at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Limited tickets available, obviously, for that event, as it's not a case of we really only have a certain amount of space in Dunleary. 2 grandstands going in for that event, and those tickets will be on sale.
And when they're gone, and they've been gone. For the last 2 years, we got a bonus year this year because of a lack of sale. Actually, it's actually sold the entire harbour, and then the development didn't go through, the planning didn't go through at the last minute, and we said, well, if you're not using it, would it be possible if we went back and did another drift event, because we've had 2 absolute crackers there. And those tickets are on sale at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Get them fast. They will be gone. Once they're gone, they're gone. We've even seen them on Dundee upwards of €100. And Chris Burnett goes through to our top 16. So Nathan is with Lee Scott in the pits. What's going on down there? We're catching back up. This is frantic stuff in the pit lane.
Extremely frantic, Dave. You couldn't have said it better. There's a crowd around right now, and what's amazing is you've got opposite drivers. Calwell's down here, McKeever's down here, and they're doing whatever it takes to get Lee Scott back on the road. I've just seen literally 25 men under the car at one time, all working in unison. It's like squirrels all working on one note. It's incredible. It looks like they might just make it. It's incredibly tense, and it just shows the incredible excitement at an event like this at Drift Games Extreme. Lee's just got into the front seat. He's ready to go, and we're hoping he's going to make it. Though literally time is of the essence. Back onto you guys, and let's hope he makes it to the start line.
He's in the car now, which is a good sign, but I think that's sort of a last-minute ditch now. We're getting towards the end of this. Remember, at the end of this battle, we're going to have one more time of Conlon and Martin, and at the end of this battle, Scott must be lined up beside Andrew Earl, or he's out of the competition.
Yeah, and these battles really just work, falling into the favour of Team Scott there, just to try and get that car fixed. And we have no idea the extent of that damage. We have no idea the extent of what spares they needed, what they've had to do to get that car back on the grid. But obviously you could see visually it looked like a big impact, and lots of parts probably needing replacement. So Conlon and Martin slowly making his way to the line.
They're back up onto the line, and one more time called after their first run. They got to go back at it again. Remember, if you're in attendance after this top 32 bracket, we're bringing all these cars onto the actual track, and you can walk straight down from the grandstand or anywhere you are around. The access is beside the bridge. You can come down, meet the drivers, check out all the cars under the bonnet, say hello, get your pictures, get your autographs, get something signed. And Dean Martin is about to lead in Paul Conlon in there one more time. Val, here we go.
Yeah, Conlon leaving a gap here, but much better through that first section from Dean Martin. Oh, does he over-rotate, Dave? Just about keeps that going, but sacrifices clip 3 as a result. And Conlon's line affected as well. Martin with a big mistake there, but gets it back. And wheels off for Paul Conlon. And this one, a calamity of errors, as Martin takes it to the wall. Conlon on a shallow line as they cross the line and giving the judges some work there.
It all started on clipping zone 2. Dean Martin almost over-rotates.
And an exhaust.
Exhaust? Paul Collins exhausted, driving under the car right now. Lee Scott's like, good man, Paul, keep it coming, keep all these problems coming. It gives me more time to get out there. Dean Martin, look, he goes on way too much angle at clipping zone 2, but Conlon, does he make the bigger error here by dropping off the circuit? That's unrelated, so 2 big errors from both of those guys on that run is kind of the way I'm seeing it. Not a pretty battle.
And then again, his line through this section, trying to catch up through the final parts of the circuit. So,
well, very different machinery here, and you got Dean Martin in a home-built car, BMW M3, going up against Paul Conlon, much more horsepower, all the 2 JZs, all the power is in that. But a 5-minute rule having to be called for Paul Conlon. He has to take that 5-minute rule, martial orders to remove or fix the exhaust brackets on his car as he's driving around the course after that wheel drop. So he will head back into the pits. This all playing into the hands of Lee Scott right now. One more times the 5-minute rules. It's like these guys are almost getting a few tenors thrown out at them on track saying, just call a 5-minute rule, let me get back on track.
If this was on the normal layout, Dave, this would have been all over for Lee Scott in terms of his time.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the delays that we've had with these 1 more times and 5-minute rules, Lee Scott would not be back on the line. This is the way drifting works. It's the way the sport works. Anything can happen. Dean Martin sits on the line. The clock has started on Paul Conlon to get back to that line. And we are once again reminding you guys that at the end of this session, if we do or do not see Lee Scott back out on the track against Andrew Earl after their big impact on the first run, we will be having a track walk. You guys can come down, meet the drivers, check out all of these machines. They are pretty insane, crazy stuff. After that, we're heading to our fan interaction zone, get back up into the grandstand. We're giving away t-shirts. We're giving away lots of prizes. We're going to pull some people out of the crowd and have them do some donuts on the track. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some fun with that later on. And then we're on to our top 16 parade until the finish. We got those drift games challenges coming up, backwards entries, team drifts. We've got all sorts of stuff coming up today that you've never seen before in Irish drifting. So definitely don't take your eyes off the screen for the next couple of hours. And you can see that Dean Martin is waiting patiently for Paul Conlon on the start line. Remember, Dún Laoghaire tickets go on sale tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. There is just 2,000 tickets available, same as every other year. They've sold out the last 2 years. It's promising to be an incredible weekend. I'll tell you why it's even... Oh, look, at Lee Scott has moved away from his pit area. Round of applause for the team on pit lane.
And more importantly, getting the thumbs up from the scrutineer, Wayne Kern.
Yeah, and that is a car, a complete rear end axle, 2 hubs, a drive shaft and a diff. And a little bit of hammering from John Shanahan to get that car back out on the grid and ready to go against Andrew Earl, and he will have a 10-0 advantage in that. So even if he hasn't the car 100%, if he makes a pass to the circuit, he will go to the top 16 parade. Brave and valiant effort there from the team around Lee Scott to get back out on the line. So right now, if you're watching this somewhere in Ireland, you can still just drive from your house right now to Mondello. Tickets are available on the gate. You can come here right now. If you're within an hour and a half, you have a time until we start that top 16. So make sure you make your way down. Sun's shining. You've gone home. You've had your dinner with your mum and you've had your Easter eggs. Now you can come down and watch some insane automotive action here at Mondello Park. And remind everyone that we have a long an exciting season ahead of us. It starts here at Modified Live Mondello Park. It moves then to Drift on the Docks on May 11th and 12th. That's round 2 in Dún Laoghaire. Then we move to Retromania, celebrating the 80s and 90s car culture. A brand new event here. It's going to be 80s rally cars, all sorts of 80s and 90s rally cars, drag cars, NASCARs, racing cars, and of course, the Drift Games Extreme, brought to you by Link ECU. Then we move to the Irish Motor Festival, over 3 times the size it was last year in Punchestown, with over 400 show cars, over 100 trade stands, 14 manufacturers, lots of fun for all the family. That is the Irish Motor Festival on August 25th. And right here, Drift Masters European Championship ends up in Mondello Park alongside the final of the Drift Games Extreme. That was the highest attended event in the last 20 years of Mondello Park last year. The best of Europe, the best of the world, and the best of Ireland in drifting. The biggest drift event in the entirety of Europe is happening in your country this September. Tickets go on sale in the end of August, start of September. So that's what's coming up for the rest of the season. Also, don't forget, Drift Games Nationals in 3 weeks' time in Watergrass Hill. The Nationals blew everyone's mind. It's not live streamed. You got to go see it yourself. But we had one of the most fun days of drifting we've ever had a couple of weeks ago in Mondello with the Drift Games Nationals. And as we wait for Paul Conlon, it looks like we are going to jump to Andrew Earl and Lee Scott on the line. Are they going to? They are on the line. Lee Scott is back in the game. Will the car come together? Will it work? Andy Earls replaced the whole front suspension. They did it quicker than your mechanic at home would ever say it's possible. And they did it in record time, and they're back to business and off the line. Can you believe it? Andy Earl is in the barrier earlier on. Lee Scott with 3 wheels on his car, and they're coming in hot again.
Yeah, Earl taking a cone with him through the first section now. Can they get through the first corner? Are these cars running? Scott, a little bit of understeer. Andrew Earl missing that second zone, but Scott now right on the door, looking to bring the fight here, looking to show Earl who's boss. Earl high on the bank as they come around by Link ECU. Lee Scott just staying with him and just keeps this car going as they throw down onto the wall. Nice run here from Andrew Earl. Scott bringing the proximity, more contact as they cross the line. Mondello hit him with a wall of sound.
Wow.
Incredible that these two guys even got back out on track after that.
He didn't even need to do that. He already had a 10-0. He didn't even need to do anything there, Lee Scott. He took a big risk there with a car that was barely buttoned up. And that is just showing the bravery, the dedication, the passion behind the scenes. Grandstand, give it up for Andy Earl and Lee Scott. Can you believe it? That is true warriors on track there. After a massive 70-mile-an-hour collision, they get back out and get the job done. And I can announce that winning the battle is Lee Scott. Lee Scott goes through to the top 16 and will live to fight another day. Obviously 10-0 against Andrew Earl on the first run. Scott getting the job done on the second. We have one more battle in the top 32 left to decide. And it's been everything it promised to be, Eddie. Fireworks, crashes, wheels off, doors put in. Mechanical failures,
Did we
dirt
say
drops.
unpredictable?
I said unpredictable.
Did we
People
say
didn't believe
unpredictable?
me. I have no idea what's going to happen for the rest of the day now. That's the really crazy part. But we have got Dean Martin and Paul Collins still to decide there. One more time battle. I can see them pulling to the line now. And if they pull to the line now, they will finish this run. It's the second half of their run. It's not another battle because it was a 5-minute rule called by Paul Collins for the exhaust.
Yeah, and if you remember back, you know, there was some slight
Am I
errors.
mistake? Was it one more time, or was it halfway?
We're halfway through, yeah.
Halfway
No,
through the battle,
through.
yeah. Halfway through the battle. So it'll be Dean Martin to chase.
Issues with small errors from Dean Martin, but then Paul Conlon way offline and almost going 4 wheels off as they went around by Link ECU.
Yeah, so
drops a
one more
cone
run,
through the
finish the top
chicane.
30. Look at the
big
smoke.
weight transfer.
Oh,
from
Conlon, 2 or
as he
3 entries
almost
there.
unsettles the line. Look, there must have been contact, Dave. Bumpers off the car. Martin on a very wide line as he gets caught now and lost in the smoke and driving straight.
He has his bumper underneath the car. The bumper's stuck in the steering of the car. He can't steer the car, Dean Martin. He's got it stuck under that front right wheel, but he's bravely trying to fight on here with a bumper stuck under the car, and he keeps it on track. Oh, it's just absolute fireworks on track in the top 32. You can see Dean Martin's car. I don't know how he's steering that. The bumper is completely destroyed underneath the front steering arm of that car. And it happened, was there impact before the initiation point? And Paul Conlon seems happy enough, and Dean Martin dragging that front bumper back. And a shake of his head, he doesn't know what's happened on initiation. Was there contact? I'm not sure what happened. Conlon's entry was very unusual.
It doesn't appear to be contact, but if you watch that replay again, it's almost as if Conlon initiates the wrong way.
Sort of mistimed it, sort of mistimed that
yeah,
initiation.
there was something very... just
but you know
a little
what?
bit odd on the eye.
We can get technical about it. Let the judges do that. You guys are in attendance. Give it up for Dean Martin and Paul Conlon. Smashing their cars to bits for your entertainment today. And these are normal guys just like you and me. They're not rich superstars. Every bumper there is €300 destroyed in an instant. And let's see if we can get a decision. Remember, you guys can wait for all those cars to come down, line up on the grid, and you can get out and have some fun with them. Have some fun with the drivers, have a chat, have a look under the cars, what's left of them anyway after the top 32. So do we have a decision from our judges? They're having a good look at this one. Dean Martin definitely doesn't have the proximity. They're having a look at the initiation. They're having a look at everything, weighing it back on the first run also with some big errors from both of the drivers. They await the result, and it's then on to our track walk, and then it is on to the top 16 parade. It's action-packed right from the off here today. You don't want to take your eyes off that track. We are putting more on it than we've ever had before, and we have a winner. And going through to the top 16 is Paul Conlon. Paul Conlon gets the win, goes through to the top 16. Quickly back to the judges. Talk us through that one. Plenty of action, but you guys saw Conlon going through.
Yeah, that one really was a little bit scrappy, to be honest. Dean had a little bit of an advantage going into the second run just because of Paul Conlon's mistakes, but it all really comes down to the second run. Unfortunately, Dean's bumper, we thought it came off due to contact, but it actually goes under the wheels through no fault of Paul Conlon's. So then he has a massive straighten going from clipping point 3 to almost clipping point 5, so he had a huge deduction there and wasn't able to gain back any proximity for the rest of the run. So unfortunately for Dean, that was enough to overturn the advantage that Dean had in the first run and give the advantage to Paul Conlon.
So there you have it, Paul Conlon taking the final spot in the top 16. We have 16 drivers and, you know, some exciting battles to look at. Ryan Caldwell already into the top 16. Connor Shanahan, Alan Hines, Jack Shanahan, Lee Scott's there despite the problems he had. Mark McBurney's there, Paul Conlon there, Paul McCarthy's there, Bas Mullah's there, the visiting driver, Ross Barr. The names go on, the list goes on, Dave. A very, very promising and exciting top 16 to look forward to.
Well, we have all the cars rolling down onto the track now. We're back just after 2 o'clock for the top 16. If you're watching online right now, if you're here in attendance, the grandstand is empty because they're queuing up to get onto the track to make sure they can get up close and personal with these machines, meet the drivers, have some fun in the sun, check out the show cars. And if you're at home, you're missing out. That's all I can say right now. You still have time to get down for that top 16. Tickets available on the gate. We'll pass it over to Nathan Black. I'm out of here. Eddie's out of here. We're going to enjoy the sights and sounds of Modified Live. Nathan, we'll see you soon.
So, yes, that wraps up. 32 have become 16. We get that even more closer to really when it gets underway. When we come back and the next part of the stream, we'll see those 16 go down to the Great 8, to 4, to 2, and then one man will be able to say, I was there and I raised my hand high and said, I won DGX. But that's not happened yet. Things are starting to turn up. They're getting a little bit more spicy out down here. Just at the start line, the guys are heading out to show the fans here that have made their way down. We're about to do a live show. We're going to be giving out freebies, having a good time. So if you're not here today, book for round 2. Come and see us because it's all happening. Go and get a Coke, get something nice to eat, and join us back here in a little bit as we get underway with the top 16.